on there, and he wasn't necessarily in favor of Sharia, but he had some really interesting practical examples of how Sharia actually did kind of work for him in a really interesting way. One of which was he got a DUI, and if he did, because in the UAE, if you get in trouble, you can either go through the federal system for punishment, or you
Mm-hmm.
can go through Sharia. The federal system, for a DUI, you get heavily, heavily fined. Winter, bugaloo. Sorry, I have my kiddo for the next 15 minutes until the wife's off work.
No, that's fine.
And if you get heavily penalized, you get your license taken away for a year. But if it's Sharia, you get a very minor fine, and you get 15 lashes. And he was like, that worked perfectly for me because I'm actually a masochist. So, the thing that the worst part about it was when I was getting whipped in public, not to call out harder daddy.
Sure.
So, like, that's a good example of in some ways having a very nuanced opinion of Sharia. I
Sure.
think one of the main reasons why people are worried about Sharia, especially being implemented in places like the West, and why there's such alarmism about it, is there's this concept of if you have a standing culture and they have a certain set of values, they have certain types of beliefs and punishments and that sort of thing. That's the overriding culture of the area. Sharia and a lot of the proponents for it in some of these Western countries, not all, of course, hashtag not all that sort of thing,
Mm-hmm.
are they fall into that trap of a minority's values needing to be more important than the overriding culture of the area that they live in. And that's where a lot of people's fear comes from.
So, can you explain that for me a little bit better? What do you mean by that?
Well, like for instance, there's a video that was released. There's a group of hardcore. Well, hardcore sounds so fucking hyperbolic. There was a group of practicing Muslims
Mm-hmm.
in the UK, and one of them was being interviewed, and he said unblinkingly, like it wasn't a joke, it was absolutely concise and a full answer to a full question. We are here to promote Sharia being adopted by the UK because ours is the word of Allah, and Allah knows better than the culture that exists here now. Your values are inferior to our values, which is why you must adopt Sharia. Obviously, that's a minority position among most people. We can understand that, but it's still a terrifying thing for people to hear.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. For me personally, I think all forms of religious law are absolutely ridiculous. I guess
Usually,
well, I mean, yeah, I guess usually I don't find any exception to it. For me in the United States, are you from America?
yeah, I'm over in Oregon.
Okay. So, one of the things that kind of miffs me, and I'm not saying that you in particular do this, but in the
Sure,
United States, I guess I get a little bit miffed now when you're seeing a lot of people on the right that are trying to broadly label all Muslims as being, believing in these particular extremist beliefs, or all being fundamentalists, or extremely crazy. They're all about to blow themselves up in car bombs, while simultaneously trying to push Christian values in the West, and that really bothers me. Um,
yeah, it should bother
right?
you. It's
Yeah.
it's preposterous.
Like
Yeah,
when
no,
the
I
same
understand.
people are cheering on, Mike Huckabee, supporting Kim Davis, not issuing licenses to marry to gay people, and there's a big deal in the conservative movement, and then to turn around and say, we don't want Sharia law. It's like, okay, well, you're trying to enforce biblical law, in the West. Like in the West, or I say in the West. We'll just talk about America because I can't speak to every
Sure,
European country, but in America, we are dealing with a lot of issues related to Christians in the United States, and getting them to roll back some of the insane kind of biblical bullshit that they want to push. So in minor ways that manifest, an education system. Some people homeschool for religious reasons. Some people, want to curb science education because they're in favor of, creationism or some things.
young Earth creationists and shit
Yeah,
like that.
or in
Yeah,
larger issues, it's the people that are majorly against, sex ed or contraception, or women's rights to abortion and whatnot. These are usually Christian people. You're not finding a lot of a-religist or atheist people out, in front of abortion clinics with signs, saying no abortions, you're murdering children, right?
right.
So I get a little bit irritated when I hear Christian people all of the time that really do represent I don't want to say like a threat, like I don't feel like my life is threatened or anything, but
Sure.
a halting of progress in my country, that keep pointing to Islam as being this massive problem. I think personally, I don't want Islam in my country insofar as like a religious rule. I'm all for the freedoms for people to celebrate whatever religion they wish, but that point of
Sure.
hypocrisy is like really striking to me. Like it really bothers me.
I can understand that. There's I think the difference, and there's a little bit of a difference, is that by and large, Christianity as a whole has gone through several different reformations. Some of which were hugely historically significant. And as America itself has progressed, as our society and our culture has evolved throughout the times, I'd say up until a few months ago, we actually were doing really good on pushing back against oppressive religious rule from Christians. And for the most part, the Reformation of Christianity had turned it usually peaceful. It was usually peaceful. And because of that, we do have like the rise of the right happening right now, which is it's a concern of mine just as much as it should be anybody's who's a free thinking, rational adult. Shit. There we go. Okay.
Oh, wait,
Okay.
I'm sorry.
All right.
Okay,
No,
yeah.
I thought my Skype crashed, but
Okay,
um,
you said a free thinking rational, and then it cut off. Sorry.
yeah, as a free thinking, rational adult, it should be a concern for anybody. You know. And when you get into the Muslim topic in America, Muslims who have been here for a while, they've gone through their own reformation, and it's just because they've adopted American principles. They've become Americans. They understand this, that, and the other thing. Of course, you'll have holdouts. I I had up until the last generation of my family that was alive. The oldest generation just died off. I had some family members who were still racist. It's just these are holdovers from anachronistic belief systems that were preposterous at the time, but people didn't realize it. So the majority of Muslims who have been here for a few generations in America, they're fine. They're totally fine. The big concern is radicalized elements, especially influencing youths. Because everybody wants to feel like they're a part of something. And what's more exciting to somebody who's young and riddled with fucking testosterone than fucking holy war. And I think that's why people they view it differently. I think that they should view it instead as a matter of um a potency.
Sure, I kind of understand what you're saying. I guess this is so when I try to talk about these issues, tons of different issues, especially political issues facing the United States. Usually,
Sure.
what I'm looking for is I'm trying to find a good conversation to have. So when I talk about a good conversation, I'm talking about like fruitful discourse. I'm talking about having a conversation that gets us to a solution to whatever problem it is that we feel that we're facing. So
Mm,
in order to establish a solution, you usually have to identify a problem, right? So when we're
right.
talking about Islam in particular, and it sounds like you agree with me, tell me if I'm misrepresenting your position, but it seems like Muslims that come over to the West and live in the West for a while are not the same people that, are blowing themselves up in school buses or trucks or whatever, running over tons of people. Like it seems like these people are much more integrated than the average Saudi man.
I would say usually yes, but there are some. I mean, we do have cases where somebody came over and they became westernized, but they still turned into an extremist. And they're extremely rare. Otherwise, we'd have fucking terror events happening all over the goddamn place. But um, the what was his name? Something Zarnaev, the Boston bombers,
Sure.
the Boston bomb brothers. They were in college. They had girlfriends. They listened to fucking American hip hop. And then they just, according to everything that we understand about it, they were online. They started watching these jihadi videos, started getting amped up, pumped up. They didn't recognize that they live in the freest country in the fucking world. They didn't realize that they had all of these benefits. Instead, they got wrapped up in something that was externalized away from themselves. So I would say that you're right, but there is that important thing that we have to pay attention to, and that is an intoxicating effect that can actually happen because people are starting to learn how to basically market extremism.
Sure, and I understand that, but I mean, to some extent, like that's always going to exist, right? That's one of the trade-offs that we kind of
Sure.
make living in a democratic environment, and that's like a. It sounds really cold to say, but it's a sacrifice of democracy, right? There are lives that are lost in exchange for freedom, and that's not
Yep.
just on the battlefield, right? Because there are ways to prevent these things, right? We could give the police, unlimited surveillance into every household, and these are things that would probably make us safer, right? But we
That's
don't
a
want to.
terrible idea, though.
Well, you say it's terrible, but it would probably reduce deaths, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, I firmly, I'm with you on it, though.
Hmm.
I do firmly believe that sacrificing your liberty for freedom is only workable to a certain point because then soon you don't have any freedoms. You give somebody an inch and they'll take a foot. It's a balancing act.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah. So I mean, so when you talk about, I think in the United States there's almost 3.5 million Muslims here. When you talk
yep.
about like a few of them commit a terrorist attack, like I don't know. I feel like that's just not enough for me to look at it and be like, okay, Islam is a massive problem in the United States. When you've got 30,000 plus gun deaths a year, when you've got 60,000 plus automobile accident deaths a year, like, and then you have like 20 or 30 people die in a nightclub or at the Boston
Yeah.
bombing. I'm not even sure, like, not to minimize or trivialize those deaths, that's tragic. I mean, every death is tragic, but in the
Sure.
grand scheme of things, we have 300 plus million people here. It's very easy to amplify one attack and then make it seem like Islam is the problem. And I guess, like, I personally, I don't like Islam. I don't like any religion, much the same that I don't
Sure.
like Christianity. But when you talk about solutions, I don't think the solution is to tell, Islam, all of you guys need to reform. Like, it doesn't really work like that. It seems like what works is having people in industrialized, successful, stable nations where women are given access to social opportunities, the ability to work and go to school, that people will eventually secularize. That seems to be a trend in the West, and even Muslims in the West kind of follow that instead of bucking it.
It might sometimes it takes a generation or two, but it,
Sure.
it does seem to be like one of the strongest effects. And I feel what you're saying, and I agree that we have this identity crisis in America. We really do. We always have. We always have. America is the greatest country on the planet. Sorry to anybody who's listening who's not American. I love you anyway, but honestly, America is the greatest country on the planet. We are the world leader. Most countries follow our lead. And we have this identity crisis because we want to feel like we're also at the center of everything. So when you take places like Germany, like Sweden, France, Great Britain, all these places that are having problems with the migrant crisis, we want to basically be like, we got to be with Muslims over here too. And that's just not true. It's just not true. We do have problems, obviously. And the more, I guess hyperbolic's going to be no, not hyperbolic. I guess the more easily excitable of people among us will rationally look at that and be like, okay, well, that's true. We don't have nearly as many problems. We haven't had nearly as many of attacks, but we could. Okay, maybe we could. So what do we do to make sure that we don't? That's something that's an interesting thing to get into. I
Kind of,
personally,
but I mean, I don't think in terms of like American law, like we tend to be more reactionary than proactive, probably for good reason, right? Like for the whole founding of our country, the idea that we limit the power of government, like we don't want legislatures saying like, well, this could become a problem, so we need to massively legislate against it just in case. Like that's not typically how we want to operate.
true, true. I think those types of promises by legislators are usually done to win favor of the masses, not necessarily done for altruistic purposes. But then
Sure.
I tend to not think any politician does anything for fucking altruistic purposes.
Sure.
So yeah.
One of the things that like a sidestep of the thing that bothers me in terms of the religious thing is there's like two really big things. One big thing is that I think that the behavior of the United States around the world influences the societies that exist in terms of, or rather contributes to, like, we'll say, the destabilization of certain societies that lends itself to extremist people, right? So like the United States activities in whether it's you're talking about the Iranian Revolution, whether you're talking about the overthrowing of Saddam, whether you're talking about the attempted detoppling of Assad, like all of these things are, whether you like America or hate America, are questionable foreign policy decisions.
I think I would I think that's too simplified though. I really do.
What do you mean by that?
Um, well, the take for instance Afghanistan. Afghanistan is a hellhole. It's been a hellhole for a while. And it absolutely a lot of this. Because my main point of contention with that is not necessarily that you're wrong. It's that putting it on just America is just that's giving it too much leeway or giving us too much credit. The the sad state of affairs is that the shit that's been happening in the Middle East is it's a byproduct of proxy wars and different struggles that have been going on between other nations for decades and decades and decades.
Sure.
And this is taking advantage of basically the social political climate that happened, in the fucking Jesus Christ. I guess it had been when was the fall of the Ottoman Empire? Jesus Christ.
Ottoman Empire was post World War One or two, one of them. But I know that after that, the United Kingdom kind of split up all the different kingdoms and
Yeah,
the Middle
yeah,
East.
it's right
And,
after. I think it was right after World War One. Yeah. And I mean, the Ottoman Empire was already like turning to shit for a while. I was talking to my friend Habib about this for a bit. But and that's the sad state of affairs is that it was the right geographical location with the right amount of resources and enough hungry countries that come in, and the byproduct of that is just destabilization, which causes a breeding ground for extremism.
Sure. So this conversation, what you're talking to me about right now, this is the kind of stuff that if I were to go onto my Twitter and I saw people saying like, oh, you faggot, like the Ottoman Empire didn't contribute this, or, oh, that's so autistic, like, I don't think that the United Kingdom and the United States had as much of an influence in this region. Like, these are conversations that I would love to read about, and they would be awesome and they would be productive because I feel like
Sure.
they would be identifying a central cause of so many of the problems in that region. But instead, and this is kind of, I don't know if I actually got to the point, but on that first thing about America's foreign policy, or really the world's foreign policy in regards to its treatment of the Middle East, it seems like this entire conversation has been moved over into this like Christianity versus Islam thing. And it's like, and like when I look at that, when we're running, like 9,000 sorties a year or whatever in the Middle East, when we're droning the fuck out of everything, when we're artificially propping up some nations and artificially toppling other nations, when the entire world is invested in these proxy wars in the Middle East. And then to have people try to boil this down into like, well, Islam is, messing everything up and, Christians are right. It's like, damn, dude, like, what are we even talking about right now? Like, this isn't a conversation that is productive or fruitful to anything going on over here. Like, there is no road that this conversation goes down that gives us a solution to any of these problems, right? Like banning all Muslims from the United States doesn't fix anything if nothing else changes, telling Muslims to go reform, which I'm not even sure what that means, doesn't really fix anything,
That's a good conversation, though.
Yeah.
That's a really good conversation.
Wait, which one?
Well, I mean, actually, all of it. All of it's
sure.
a good conversation. Shit. Okay. Actually, no. I want to write this down just so like we can address those. I want to make sure. One of the main reasons why you can't have these types of conversations on Twitter, and people will always devolve into just shit posting. And even if you start on Twitter and then you take it to voice, a lot of times it devolves into a bunch of shit. Twitter is a shit platform for trying to have a conversation or exchange ideas. It's good for links and shit posting.
Sure, but it's not just Twitter. Like, these are the predominant conversations that are dominating media all over the world. Is this like Islam versus the rest of the world kind of thing that Trump himself is leading?
One of the reasons I think people can't have good conversations about this, though, it's the same. It's the same reason why I think most people can't have a good conversation at all. People are afraid to say, I don't know.
Sure. I think also there's a desire, maybe going along with that same thing, there's a desire to boil down very complicated issues into like a one or two talking points.
Sure. Sure. No, I think that's yeah, you kind of have to. You can't you kind of have to boil it down into very specific types of
Yeah,
things.
but the
So,
problem is like things are so complicated with everything these days. Like we live in such a interconnected world, you know, like even something as simple as like are immigrants good or bad for the economy? Like this is a discussion that
yeah.
involves manufacturing around the world, tax codes that incentivize businesses to export labor or businesses, you know, the type of
Mhm.
immigration you want, low skill versus high skill versus your welfare state and how, like there's a million things that come into play. But then people always want to boil it down to like one topic, and it's like, okay, well, this conversation doesn't produce any meaningful results. Like, there's no solution here. Like, you can't just ban all immigration, and you can't just allow infinite immigration. Like, there has to be like
Sure.
more nuance to these conversations.
Absolutely. It's interesting because we have just like a little microcosm before we get like back on the point, but
Uh-huh.
here in Oregon, we legalized marijuana. You know, I personally don't smoke weed, even
Mm-hmm.
though I have dreadlocks, and people always assume I do. I don't smoke weed,
Sure.
but it's a huge, massive source of revenue for the state. Massive, just oh my god, so much that they actually are lowering the tax on it because they're getting too much money. Never thought that would happen in my life. But the supply is not meeting the demand. There's not enough weed for everybody because it's just fucking everywhere. And we also have this horrible problem in specifically my town with homeless people. So my solution is give all the homeless people some scissors and teach them how to trim some weed. And there you go, supply and demand, easy way to fix it.
Sure.
Yeah, you can make good money trimming weed, man. Trust me.
Yeah, no, but I mean, I mean, it sounds very simple, but I mean, yeah, I mean, marijuana. That's always been like one of the no-brainer things is the legalizing drug, like, or legalizing at least marijuana, right? You're taking profit
Yeah,
away from a lot of people that probably shouldn't have it, and then you're giving I mean, Colorado, I think, faced similar issues. I think didn't they issue a big tax rebate to a lot of people, or they ended up cutting there
huge.
because of the amount of revenue that they were making? Yeah, these seem like no-brainers, you know,
Yeah.
especially when people are clamoring for jobs and American-made products, and you know.
Mhm. It's
Ironically
wild.
enough, marijuana tends to be another thing that Christians are predominantly opposed to. But
I think they're softening on it. I think they're softening on it
sure,
quite a bit. You know,
yeah,
just got you gotta find the right way to market it. You know, like this is get some kosher weed for the Jews, get some blessed by a priest weed for the hardcore Christians. You know, like blessed by an imam for the Muslims. You know, just get your holy weed going on. You know,
sure.
sacrament or whatever. Fuck, people buy whatever. So the question that I had for you, and I think this is kind of an interesting topic.
Hmm.
So we see the problems with immigration over in Europe, and some of the effects that have happened over there. Some disastrous, some workable, some none really seem to be working well. As far as I've been able to tell, as far as I'm versed in, none have really worked well. Some have worked enough that it's not a giant shit show. Um, we only hear about the shit shows, obviously, because that's how news works.
Hmm.
But here in America, we had the temporary ban on immigration from specific countries. Do you feel like that was a mistake in total, or do you feel like there was like like the idea could have had validity?
So I feel like this is probably one of the biggest issues that I've had with this president. So I am very much an atheist, an a-religious person, and probably at this point I would consider myself to be anti-theistic. However, I think that in the United States, I don't think that we should ever be discriminating against people on the basis of religion. And it seems like if you listen to everything that Trump said, if you see what's posted on his own website, Trump's goal has always been to ban Muslims from entering the United States. And Trump also, if you take Giuliani at his word, went to Giuliani, asked him how to do a Muslim ban, and then enacted a ban against 7 majority Muslim countries.
Sure.
I think none of which contributed to any of you, like the 9/11 hijackers at all. I think there was only one terrorist attack in the United States that one of these countries, I think it was Sudan.
Yep.
That, yeah,
Sudan.
yeah. So it was like, I don't know, like when I see stuff like that, again, like I'm trying to think of like how do we move forward and make everybody happier and everything better, and it seems like alienating a large part. So here's like an analogy that I'll draw real fast. Are you familiar?
Sure.
You said, do you play video games or whatever?
Oh, lots and lots of video games.
Okay, so you're familiar with like the whole social justice warrior movement, right?
Very familiar.
Okay, so do you ever run into this issue where you get a feminist saying some very, very, very crazy shit, okay, very bonkers shit, and then when you say like, "Hey, Anita," "Hey, Zoe," "Hey, Randy Harper," any of these, these stable figures, Brianna Wu, "Hey, this is crazy shit. You need to stop doing this," and then when they hear that, they try to reframe that as an attack on all women. Right,
Oh yes.
right.
Oh, I'm very
So
well aware.
you're
Oh yeah.
very, very careful when you have these conversations. Like, well, hold on, stop. I'm not attacking all women. I'm just attacking your crazy ideas. I'm not attacking all women. I'm just attacking your crazy ideas, right? We're very, very careful.
Misogynist.
Yeah. Or if you're talking about, like, say, Black Lives Matters, whether you hate them
Yep.
or like them or whatever, if you attack a black person for saying something crazy, like, oh, so you hate all black people, it's like, no, 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 no. I'm only attacking you. This is specific to your point of view. I'm not attacking all black people, right? It
Yep.
seems like your goal as an extremist is always to make it feel like everybody is on your side and your target is attacking everybody that's even remotely like you, right? That seems to always be the goal. But you don't but then when you're on the offensive, right, against that kind of ideology, you don't want to feel like you don't want everybody on the other side to feel attacked. But when you look at Islam, you have extremist groups like ISIS that kill more Muslims than anything else, right? Than any other type of person, right? You have them saying things like, "Oh, we represent all of Islam." And then you've got people over here that'll jump to that idea, like, "Oh yeah, they are. All Islamic people are bad. All Muslims are bad." It's like, well, no, 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 no. Why would you let them reframe the conversation like that? Like, most Muslims predominantly around the world are peaceful, a chunk of them have some pretty fucked up ideas. I'm not gonna sit here and defend Saudi Arabia's treatment of women or throwing gay people off of buildings. But I mean, if you look at the United States, we have our own history of burning gay people and doing some fucked up shit. Not to excuse what they do, it is inexcusable. But I get really that reframing of the conversation to attacking everybody, it's just not productive, right? Because when the
Sure.
insane extremists do it, they're just trying to get more power on their side and more support on their side, right? Whereas if you had a world of people that were like, we understand that Islam is not the problem, it's just these crazy fucked up extremist groups that need to go, it makes it that much harder for them to recruit, and it makes them feel that much less legitimate in their cause, But when you have the leader of the free world banning 7 countries, saying that he wants to ban all Muslims from the United States eventually, like, it adds a lot of legitimacy to those groups, in my opinion. Sorry, go ahead,
Well,
Arthur.
so the question that I'd have though is, okay, so the 7 countries that were banned, we know that list came from originally a proposal that Obama was putting out, as I don't think it was for a travel ban. I think it was for.
It was high risk travel, I think, was what they said.
Yeah, yeah, it was basically like a watch list, and Trump just basically adopted it. Now, I always had a big problem with it because I would never call it a Muslim ban because there are way more Muslim countries than just those 7. But I can understand how, especially with like the language that was being used during the election, the language that's even being used by the administration can lend towards it feeling like it's a Muslim ban. And it could have been, in their minds, it could have been a Muslim ban. I can't speak to what they were thinking. I'm just trying to be as objective as possible.
Sure.
But the thing that bothered me about it was, at the core of it, was to put a temporary suspension for a period of time so that we could increase our vetting process for immigrants. But it drove me nuts because these are not the countries that we really needed to be putting these extra restrictions on, right? I think we can both agree on that. Like, aside from Sudan, like, the rest of them had nothing attached to any of the terror suspects that had operated in America so far. So this seemed weird.
Yeah.
It seemed in the absolutely wrong direction. It was a huge fuck up on that part. But the idea of suspending immigration from places where we have had extremists come over for 3 months in order to toughen up our vetting process, do you think that in and of itself is a bad idea?
So my problem when you run into these issues are, so I'm not sure if you're a big Trump supporter or not, but my big issue with Trump is that, are you a big Trump supporter?
I'll put it this way. I voted for him. It doesn't matter that I voted for him because I live in a blue state. Oregon will never vote red. It just doesn't happen.
Sure.
I voted for him because I couldn't vote for Hillary, because I felt that we were more likely to go to war with Hillary than Trump. And from the news just today, I am now very, very disappointed, and I'm pissed.
Sure. So
you
my
know.
problem with
So
Trump, and I don't know if you'll agree or disagree with this, but to me, Trump sounds, this sounds mean to say, but he sounds very stupid or misinformed about a lot of things. He seems like he has a very simplistic view of how some things work. Everything that he said in regards to the economy or the tax code or anything, it just sounds very, very simplistic, very naive. This idea that we're going to put tariffs across every single import to protect our industry, like there's a reason why we haven't done this, and these would be disastrous policies.
sure.
And then not understanding the finesse of how some of these geopolitical struggles go. For instance, the TPP wasn't just about a trade agreement, right? It also had to do with us extending our influence across the world to prevent China from doing so, right? It wasn't just, trade. It was, and China's trying to get their hands in everything, and now they're even trying to move into South America with some of these deals. Like, so, not to say that I'm necessarily in favor of the TPP, but I wish that there was somebody negotiating it that understood the finesse, right? And you've seen him stumble on issues like relating to Taiwan and whatnot, in these horribly misinformed, very simplistic views of things. So, in bringing this back to the vetting thing, Trump has said this so many times. I want to restrict travel until we've increased vetting. The problem is he's never said what that means. He's never talked about our current vetting process, and he's
I've
never
noticed
said,
that.
yeah, he's never said, what does he want to make it better? Like, how does he want to improve it? Because as it stands right now, the vetting process that we have for refugees coming into the United States, firstly, only 1% of them even get resettled to the U.S. from the UNHCR, the United Nations. Yeah, only 1% of those get resettled. And then of those, it's like an 18 to 24 month process. Only half of them make it through. Almost 800,000 have been resettled in the United States, and 2 of them got dinged for terrorist-related activities and that they were trying to send money to people in Iraq. I think the guy's in Kentucky.
Yeah.
And that was when Obama had increased travel restrictions from Iraq for like 430 days in response to that, right?
Oh, yeah, I remember that. Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So like, so when you talk about like increased vetting, like it seems like we already have a fuck ton of vetting. And I mean, it seems like we get into like a lot of these kinds of weasel words where it's like, we need better vetting. It's like, okay, well, what does better vetting mean? I don't know if you were aware of this, but at one point in time, they tried to push it through. So I think the head of Homeland Security had to individually sign off on every single individual refugee's application coming in. I think they eventually turned that over, or he decided not to because it was ridiculous. But it's like what kind of vetting are you looking for? And then it seems like sometimes people are quick to try to set these absurd standards. Like, and I've even heard people on Twitter saying things like 0% crime should be coming from these people. It's like, okay, well, like that's not realistic. Like, you're never going to have a crimeless population of people. Like, no native population, fits that category.
What do you want, Demolition Man? That's
Yeah, like
it's a... Red Letter Media did the review of Demolition Man. Now I have that movie stuck in my head. Have you seen that?
yeah, that
Mellow
was the one with
greetings,
Stallone,
citizen.
right?
Yeah.
Where they have sex with the machine. We're getting closer and closer every day.
Yeah, and you can't swear. Everybody's super polite, no hurt feelings. It's illegal. But anyway, I digress. That's a good point, and that is something that I've also thought about as well before. I've talked to some of my Canadian friends, and they said that their immigration policy was even more strict than America's. There's been more domestic terror attacks from non-immigrants than there have been attacks from immigrants in like the entirety of Canada's history.
Sure.
Maybe that has a part to play in it, but that's also it's a very complicated and nuanced situation. I don't really know. I don't really know exactly where I stand on it, to be honest. It was one of those. See, here's the problem that I've been having with Trump. I assumed during the whole presidential run that, and this is how I made my choice on who I was going to vote for.
10-dimensional chess.
10-dimensional chess. I made my mind up on who to vote for. I was like, okay, if Trump means 75% of what he's saying, he's still better than Hillary. So I'll go ahead and vote for Trump. But I'm just going to assume all this really wacky shit that he's been saying, he's just saying that to get fucking elected. Okay?
Sure.
He's not going to do any of that shit. He won't do fucking any of it. No fucking way. No way. Hey, he's fucking doing it. He's fucking, and I just, now I have to understand and deal with the repercussions of that.
Yeah.
And the immigration policy in and of itself, the idea of increasing vetting on the face value can't really hurt anything.
Well,
But is it really going to improve anything? The worst I can see is it will just cost more. But at the same time, you would still then have to be doing it for the countries that it would make sense to do it.
so
So I
the,
was a bit pissed about that.
the things that I'm looking at here that I think you have to be really careful with that wording, like it can't hurt anything, is one, it will be a bigger financial sink. Are you aware of the drug testing that they did on welfare recipients? Have you heard about any of that? Yeah,
Oh my
which ended
God.
up being a massive waste of money, right?
Huge.
In every state that it was done, it was a massive waste of money. So we do have to worry about the
Go figure. If you can't afford food, you can't
yeah.
afford drugs.
So I think that the waste of money is an important thing, and then I also just think that it's important that we have these certain cognitive like pitfalls that everybody seems to be so vulnerable to when it comes to political discourse. And I don't know what your city in particular discusses, but you hear the same type of rhetoric used to push absurd types of laws that just go against what we are as a nation. So sometimes you'll hear this in support of emergency services. If you talk about emergency services and pension spiking, this is an issue that my city has dealt with for the past 10 years, but you can't touch it because as soon as you start talking about pension spiking for emergency services, people are like, what, you want to make policemen and firefighters poor? These people that risk their lives for us, right?
Oh, you're talking about them reallocating funds from pensions for emergency purposes.
Oh no, not even that. Well, like basically in Omaha, the way that it worked was, I don't know if it's like this all over the country, but in Omaha, your pension is based on the last 2 years of your salary. It's a percentage of that. So what people do is they're earning a 50, 60K salary all year, all of their career. And then in the last 2 years, they do a fuck ton of overtime. They bank like 120K and then their pension ends up paying them more a year than their normal salary was because it's based on those last 2 years. But like the problem is like anytime somebody tries to talk about it, right? You're like, oh, so you want to hurt firefighters, right? And it's not just that. When you talk
Okay,
about
I get it.
when you talk about like drug reform or prison reform, right? Like we need to do something about our prisons. Like, oh, so you want to let murderers free to go and rape and murder children? It's like, well, no, fuck, dude. Like, come on, like that's every conversation. Or with the Patriot Act, right? Like, okay, we need to give our national security agencies unlimited power to monitor literally every single fucking thing we do. Well, hold on, I don't know if that goes in line with American values. That seems kind of crazy. It's like, oh, so you want to let terrorists come and destroy the United States? You want to watch your mother
Sure.
die in a bomb? It's like, well, fuck, dude. Like, is it impossible to have these conversations without going to the extreme? And that's what you kind of get with this vetting thing, And it's like, we need more vetting. It's like, well, what do you mean by more vetting? Like, what is? I mean, our vetting is already like the toughest of any vetting that's ever happened in all of human history. Oh, you want to let terrorists into the country? Like, well, no, but like, geez, Sorry.
Sometimes I think it's kind of like a feel good measure. I keep going back to the Boston bombing because it's such a poignant situation. With these very westernized children. They're Muslim. They flee a war torn country from all the shit that's going on around in the Soviet Union area. I think were they Chechen? I can't remember.
It was some weird. You're talking about the Boston bomber dudes?
Yeah.
It was a mixed thing for where they were from, but yeah, whatever.
Yeah, one of the like splinter countries that happened after the fall. And these are very Western people, very Westernized people, and then they fall into it. And so, like, more vetting process. Maybe this is just kind of like a lollipop in the mouths of people who are afraid. Maybe that's what it is. And I do have to wonder about how much that's going to work. And I vastly don't think that we ever really address the issue, that we're not really addressing the way that we have to combat the notion of extremism. This has always been my idea. This is how you fix extremism. Okay. You take every single C-130 that's in the American Air Force fleet. You load it with TV, VCR, or TV, DVD. Let's get modern. TV, DVD combos. And taped to that is the entire series of Seinfeld. On top of it is a microwave, and inside the microwave is packed a month's supply of Hot Pockets. And you just fly over Afghanistan, and you just drop them all from a fucking parachute. And then you'll be fine. Everything will be fine. It'll be fine. They'll sit there, they'll eat their Hot Pockets, they'll watch Seinfeld, they'll laugh their dicks off, and next thing you know, American.
Sure. So I
That,
mean, like
that's a joke. But you know what I
you're
mean,
kind
though.
of joking, but I mean that to a large extent. I mean that is true. As nations become more industrialized, as nations are allowed to be stable, as nations get more and more exposed to, you could call it Western propaganda, but our culture and our entertainment, which is
Sure.
pervasive throughout the entire world, right? American
Hmm.
entertainment is. Yeah, I would agree that these things. I would hope that people would trend towards those things. Now, if we had lived in a world where 20, 30, 40 years goes by and you see an incredibly stable Middle East without tons of foreign intervention, and you still see all of these same problems occurring, then at that point, like, yeah, I would definitely entertain the idea, like, okay, well, there must be something fundamentally broken in Islam that is just preventing these people from moving forward, and I would definitely have that conversation at that point. But it's like when you see countries like Indonesia or Bangladesh, right? Or I think Indonesia had a female head of state, a
Hmm.
president, right? Before the United States did, right? Or Jordan, I think, that made it technically legal to be gay, I think, before any other country in the world, right? When these Muslim countries exist, it gives me pause. And it's like, okay, well, maybe there is something different going on here. And, we can look to history and we can see the fucking crazy shit that has been done in the name of Christianity, as much as people don't like to, admit it or talk about it. And I'm not even talking about the Crusades. Like, a lot, like the
Sure.
KKK is a Christian organization, did a lot of crazy shit, and we're very, very, very religious, very Christian people, and cited Bible verses and whatnot.
Hmm.
But it seems like for the most part, Christian nations in the West have become more and more secular, have moved away from their religious texts. Like, I don't believe that this was a reformation of Christianity. I just think it was people becoming more secular, because the base religious text of Christianity is still very fucked up. There's still a lot of fucked up shit in the Old Testament, even in the New Testament to some extent,
Sure.
that for the most part, people don't really follow. Like, there are very few fundamentalist Christians in the West anymore.
Well, there's a few different historical examples that we can
Mm-hmm.
look to when it comes to Christianity. It's the same thing. It's going to be the same thing with Islam. This is basically using the environmental situation of a culture, and using the book as a source of power to try and manipulate people into whatever activity needs to be done.
Sure.
We can look at Christianity. Christianity is fascinating because we have several different sections of Christianity throughout history and how they developed in different cultures. You have in the West, stemming out of Rome, you have the Western Holy Roman Empire. And it is a Christian empire. And you have various different centuries and the different ways that it worked under different forms of power, whether it was a power through the church, power through whatever ruler or king at the time that was like shitting all over the church or whatever.
Sure, the Church of
Yeah,
England, and yeah, yeah.
right. And this is a church that is vying for power, and you can see all the ways that those power plays affect the populace, and you can read about how things got oppressive or progressive or whatever. But then also you have the Church of the East that was cut off from the rest of Christianity. It was actually protected by Muslims, strangely enough, and eventually drifted north to become Russian Orthodoxy. It is a totally, totally different type of Christianity, and these are wildly disparate cultural groups that are still under the same moniker of a belief system. So the problem has never necessarily been Islam, just like the problem's never really been Christianity.
Sure.
The problem is how people use that as a base for controlling people or pushing an idea. Extremism breeds in strife, and
Yeah,
when
that's
there is
that's
less
absolutely
strife,
yeah, that's absolutely 1,000,000% true. Yeah.
absolutely, and that's just kind of like the thing that we're dealing with today. And that's why you have things like the Tsarnaevs with the Boston bombing. These kids wanted strife so much, and they saw the strife, and it fed into their young men testosterone, and almost like easily brainwashable brains that they went and committed an act of terror that was terrible. 3 people died, and over 200 people were permanently crippled for life. Um, and that's just basically the whole thing. But it's so hard to have this conversation because, like, I have friends who are hardcore right-wing conservatives. I have
Mm-hmm.
friends who are hardcore left-wing liberals. I have friends from all over the spectrum, and sometimes I think they're all on the spectrum because they cannot They cannot have a conversation about this without really going off the reservation.
Yeah, and like
Uh,
the amount of history revision, like in our lifetime. I'm 28 years old. I was like, how old was I when we invaded Iraq? I was already past. Oh God, fuck. When was the first Iraq invasion? I don't remember. Was it 2002? Or not the first one. I'm sorry, but the second Gulf War, whatever. When we went to get rid
Second
of
Gulf War.
when we went to get rid of Saddam,
I think it was the end of 2002.
sure.
Yeah.
So like where like people talk about like ISIS is a Muslim organization. ISIS came from Islam. ISIS is Islam. It's like, okay, ISIS came from two places. ISIS came from Syria and Iraq, and the only reason it was able to grow there is because we destabilized the fuck out of both of these countries. Like, this happened in your lifetime. You cannot claim to not understand this. Like, and like what you said, an unstable territory breeds extremism, and that's like been a fundamental nature of like, the longer an area is destabilized, the longer, the higher the likelihood of some extremist group rising, you know, to kind of take control of of everything, you know, like when shit is fucked, you know, whether it's ISIS or the mafia or, you know, some group popping up to offer you security or offer you a way of life or you a purpose. Like, yeah, so like that blows my mind when we literally tore Iraq asunder, and then when we made Syria a failed state, and then ISIS goes and picks up recruits in these horribly fucked areas, and then everybody's like, must be Islam. It's like, hold on, dude, like, this is not the conversation that we need to be having. Like, this is not what we need to talk about. Like, that is not the problem here, you know?
It's, yeah, I mean, there's always going to be this trap that people fall into is, what exactly do you want to try and achieve out of the conversation that you're having? It's really easy to point and point out the bad guy. Well, this is the thing that we need to be focusing on. This is the thing that we need to like be hyper focused on, and it's usually not really the thing that people need to focus on. But I will say this. You know, it's not always easy to be friends with hard right wingers. It's not always easy to be friends with hard left wingers. But I will give all of my friends credit who are intelligent, compassionate human beings, is that if I sit down with them and we have a conversation about it, even like, I mean, I feel like the word racist is thrown around a lot. That doesn't really fit a lot of people. It really doesn't. It really doesn't.
I
think
not.
Yeah, I think it's tossed around negligently. But there are a lot of people who I'm friends with that get called racist daily. I mean, shit, I get called racist daily all the fucking time. I think it's hilarious. But you know, those people with their really extreme points of view and their far right leanings, you know, if I sit down and I talk with them, we break it down and we talk about like where extremism comes from. You know, after you have a chance to let them explain themselves in an intellectual space, you know, they'll tell you straight out, right? Like, I have a problem with Islam because it's religion, but I can totally understand that extremism isn't reliant necessarily on Islam. Islam's just a really good avenue for extremism.
You have way smarter friends than the average person that I end up talking to on the internet.
Well, but that's the thing, though. That's the thing. A lot of people don't give people credit. Like, here's a good example. Here's a great example. I'm friends with, do you know who Blonde from Beauty and the Beta is? Blonde in the Belly of the Beast?
Like, was Beauty and the Beta, was that a meme?
Beauty and the Beta is a show. It's one of my favorite live shows.
Oh, okay, no, I have no idea. I don't know. No.
Yeah, it's a left-winger, Matt Christensen, and a right-winger, Blonde, and they do a weekly show. They're wonderful people. Blonde got in trouble because she made a comment when she was visiting over in Germany that she felt that these Muslim migrant men who were picking up these German girls who were their girlfriends seemed to be very disrespectful. And she was wondering about how European values are equating with the introduction of a culture coming from the Middle East. Now, her stating that basically like had everybody crucify her, put her on the tree of woe, you know, and it's just a conversation that she's having. She's trying to understand and think about this. But if you sit down and you talk with Blonde, she's an amazingly intelligent person. She doesn't fucking hate Muslims. You know, she's a wonderful human being, but people will automatically jump to the conclusion that anybody who espouses a talking point that sounds vaguely to the right or to the left is akin to an extremist on that side, and it's
So
preposterous.
I guess like the way that it feels like something that has happened to me is or not to me, but it feels like something that's happened is like you have like if you could imagine like a train going around a mountain and there are two tracks, one is on the inside and one is on the outside, and then there's like there are like two groups of people. You've got like a group of people that want to ride on the inside track and then a group of people that want to ride on the outside track. But there's also this third group that's probably a minority, but it has a decent vocal following that wants to like pull the train off and down the mountain. Like
Sure.
and as soon as the people that want to go on the outer track get there, you have all the people trying to pull the train over and like take it down. It seems like you end up in this scenario where again, what you're saying, I want to believe what you're saying, that there aren't a lot of really racist people in America. I would hope that's not the case, but I think the problem is that they found themselves...
Everybody's racist. Everybody's racist.
Well, to some extent, but there are degrees, right, that we're talking about, right? Like,
Sure.
there are, I feel like the right has found itself in the company of a lot of people that are lining up very conveniently on a lot of very extremist talking points, right? Well, you've got people that are like, white women should never date Arab men, or, you know, like, I want to protect white America. I'm worried that whites are going to become a minority. You know, I don't want too many Mexicans coming. Who was the Stephen?
White genocide.
Yeah, white genocide. I think that was it the Stephen King guy from Iowa that said, I don't want people to be, or we can't replace our population by having other people breeding new children for us. Like
Representative Stephen King. Yeah. He's a fucking retard. Yeah, no,
when you run into issues like this, and then a lot of these people are taking their side, and then you're getting a lot of these people popping up who are like, well, yeah, I mean, that's kind of true. Like, I do want to protect my white culture, and, you know, I really do want, you know, I like white people, and, like, I don't want to be a minority. It's like, you start to wonder at some point, like, okay, well, we're getting into like very, very, very strange territory here where it's very hard for me to decipher what it is you actually believe, you know?
You know what I try and do? I try and be really charitable, and I learned this from a friend of mine. He happens to be black. But I learned this from a friend of mine, and he said, hey, every time you hear somebody say white culture, forgive it because it's a stupid thing to say,
and assume they mean American culture,
and assume that they mean American culture because they're just not paying attention. Just do that once and try and talk to them from that context. Because the thing is, people are stupid. I will say probably 60. No, this is real talk. This is real talk.
Sure.
65% of the people in America are probably kind of dumb. Not stupid. They're not stupid people, but they're kind of dumb about specific things that they just have never had an exposure to. They're just not very aware of it. They're not woke, bruh. You know, whatever. But I will genuinely, and I've been all over this country. I've been all over the world. I've met lots and lots of people. I will say that, because I am an optimist, 95% of the people in this country are not actually racist. Or if they are racist, they don't want to be, they don't mean to be, they don't understand, they've never been given an option to move past something that they otherwise just take for granted. I believe that there is an inherent goodness in people.
I would hope so.
I like to think so. I'm a huge optimist. But then again, people can be really fucking dumb.
Sure.
Know?
So just before we talked here, had you ever heard of me at all?
You? Yeah.
Okay, so did you hear
I've watched your gameplay before.
Okay. Have you did you hear about like my talk with JonTron?
Yeah.
So like I try to do the same charitable thing because I do a lot of talking on my stream, and I'm not really interested in strawmanning people or, you know, like knocking down, you know, stupid talking points. It just doesn't. It's not very interesting to me. I mean, I could do that all day, but I listen to people do that all day, and it's very boring. It's not the kind of conversation I like. So I try to be charitable, but like even when you give some people outs, like when I was talking to JonTron, I don't know if you remember this part of the conversation or if you listened to it, where I like specifically said like, okay, well, you know, what if these people came and integrated immediately? And he's like, well, okay, but I'm not sure if that would happen right away. Like normally they'd integrate into the gene pool first. Like when you hear comments like that, like I have to wonder. And then not to try to like pull a get you or whatever, because I don't know anything about the friend or whatever, but like somebody linked me this tweet and said that what she said was like a little bit more edgy than how you made it sound. Like seeing this tweet, like if I saw this tweet, seeing a ton of blonde, blue-eyed German women with Arab men, disheartening. Is this common in Germany, or is it just my
sure.
Like, like that looks like that's a pretty hard thing to walk back on. Like when I see,
I understand.
Like,
I understand. I
It's
do.
really hard to be. And again, like, so have you ever heard the phrase, people will say this a lot to women in abusive relationships, when somebody is showing you the kind of person they are, don't ignore them, right? If somebody is acting in a certain way that is very negative, like at some point you have to open up. Like, I do believe that people act in ways where you can try to divine, you know, what is inside of their head, right? Truly, we never know what anyone is actually thinking. We can only go by sensory perception of speech to try to interpret their thoughts, you know?
Right, of course, of course.
But like, I mean, like, again, like trying to be charitable, like maybe if she had said something like, wow, a lot of my German friends, you know, are dating Arabs, like that's really weird. Like, okay, I can kind of get into culture things there, but like blonde, blue-eyed German women with Arab men, like, damn, that's really descriptive. Like, what are we talking about here? Like, damn,
no,
like,
I understand. I understand. You remember what I said a little while ago? When I said one of the problems with having a debate, one of the problems with having a conversation with people is when they're afraid to say that they don't know.
Sure.
That is probably the number one problem that happened in that JonTron debate. JonTron did not want to say that he did not know. And I'm just going to put it out there. John's not good at debating. He's not good at debating.
So a lot of people keep saying that. I'm working on a big like recap video just so I can finally get all of my finishing thoughts out on it. But like, I didn't buy that as a cop-out. I think that JonTron legitimately believes in a lot of the things that he said. And the reason why I think that's important is because I do think that these are things that should be discussed. So one thing that I think a lot more people believe than I initially thought, and maybe you think, or maybe anybody thought, is I do think that there is a growing number of people that think there are divides between the races that are genetic, that are intrinsic.
My Christ. Oh my God. Oh my God. You will find nobody more fervently freaking the fuck out about how obnoxious race realists are than me.
Sure. So that's amazing. That's good. But like at some point, and I've noticed there's a lot of, are you familiar with the term dog whistle?
Oh, yeah.
So because I spend a lot of time, I usually, when I submerge myself into media, it's usually of the opposition so I can understand, you know, like I spend a lot of time reading Poll, I spend a lot of time reading the SJWs on Shit Reddit Says, and the Donald, right? I've noticed that there are a lot of these dog whistles out now from people that are race realists that I didn't even realize before. Things like the insult low IQ, like...
Sure.
That's a pretty big dog whistle for people that are. I didn't realize this until like a couple months ago that these are people that talk heavily about IQ related things being intrinsic to race, you know. And I've spoken to a lot of race realist people, and JonTron, and again like. And this, it actually really bothers me that you said this because I hear so many people say that where they're like, oh, well, JonTron was just a bad debater. Like, well, first of all, we didn't even really debate. Like, I was just asking him a lot of questions. Like, JonTron all on his own, and most of my conversation was asking questions, would just bring up very bizarre things that leads me to wonder, like, when you say things like, you know, wealthy black people commit more crime than poor white people, or you look at the situation of blacks in America and you say that's socioeconomic, okay, well, what about blacks in Africa? Well, it's like, whoa.
You know, it's funny too because a lot of people kept bringing that whole thing up to me, like wealthy blacks commit more crime than poor whites, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they're like, "What do you think?" Some people say that that's disputed. Some people say that that's accurate. What do you think, Jeff? And I'm like, I don't fucking care. And I brushed it off. Honestly, I never looked into it. It's one of those things that. It's one of those things that I feel like is just kind of it kind of becomes noise. I don't know why the fuck John brought it up. I don't know why the fuck he brought it up.
Could it be because he thinks there might be an intrinsic difference between some of the races?
Maybe he does. I don't know. I mean, I can't speak for John. You'd have to ask him again. But I don't think that's probably gonna work. But you know,
not at this point.
But the problem with race realism, because I've made videos on race realism and how it's bullshit. I even like called out their god king Stefan Molyneux on why he's a fucking cult leader and he doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. That was a shit show. It was a fucking shit show. The problem with it that always comes down to there's two problems. Mm-hmm. Number one, race realists will always try and lump everybody into one specific coherent category. Like, All blacks. Well, what do you mean all blacks? Do you mean the West Africans that were actually smuggled over and turned into slaves in America? Or are you talking about the North Africans or the East Africans or the South Africans? Are you taking all of them as a group cohesively? Because I'll have you know, most of the migrants that come over from Nigeria into America, they end up getting massive degrees and making shit tons of fucking money.
Sure. Or
So
black people in the United Kingdom don't face the same issues as black people in, in Chicago and Detroit and DC. Yeah.
Exactly. Or Asians. Asians, a great one. You'll hear Stephen Molyneux. Well, I'm not racist because, Asians are so much smarter than white people. Well, which Asians are you talking about,
Are you talking about the Asians that have the money to travel across the ocean to come to the United States? They're better than the black people that were left there from slavery. Yeah.
Fuck. How about the Northern Mongolians? How our Northern Mongolians got the same IQ scores as somebody from Japan? Or how about from Cambodia? Or Burma? They got them high IQ scores like somebody from fucking Beijing? I don't fucking think so. Eat my dick, you fucking liar. And so that's the first problem. The second problem with race realism is let's assume race realism is true. Let's assume we have enough data, which is we don't, to say that your skin color can determine what your IQ is. Well, the IQ test does not tell you how fucking smart you are. The IQ test will tell you how well versed and how well you can make the connections to do problem solving in specific areas. It does not tell you your capacity to learn. It tells you what areas of learning you have more of a predication to, more of a, what word am I fucking looking for?
An inclination, more of I know the word you're looking for, and I can't think of it either.
Yeah,
it's a synonym of inclination, but I know what you mean.
Right. The ease by which you will learn in that specific area, and the truth of the matter is the human brain is extremely plastic. What that means is it's very malleable. With enough practice, with enough effort, anybody can achieve massive amounts of brilliance in whatever thing that they really, really want to go towards. And race realism in and of itself just falls fucking flat. It always will, because human will always trump whatever statistical fucking data you have out there.
But this is a conversation to where if a lot of people believe this stuff, or if a lot of people are starting to believe this stuff, I think that these would be really good conversations to have, And that's one of the things that bothers me when a lot of people say that JonTron misspoke. I think he gave enough inclination there that it's pretty easy to tell that he believes that there is some discrepancy about the races. Now, from there, I'm very big because I have a really huge history in online stuff, and I have had my career witch hunted into the ground by SJWs in the past. If you Google my name and shit Reddit says, these are people that not only went after my sponsors, but when my sponsors wouldn't drop me, they went after all of the clients of my sponsors. So I'm aware of this. I don't want to see JonTron losing positions. I tweeted out that I thought it was really dumb that Platonics dropped JonTron from the game that he was voicing, because all you do is you further entrench people into their extremist positions by boycotting them. But
I mean, it turned out okay because their game is poorly reviewed anyway.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Well, but I just don't like the idea of, if somebody disagrees with an opinion, we need to fucking destroy their fucking life in every conceivable way. I don't think that's a good way, because I think my ideas are better. I think that my ideas are better than John's, and I think that I'm more correct. So I feel like if I had the opportunity, even if it's not me personally, but if more people were interacting with JonTron, if he was working with studios that had intelligent black people, intelligent women, intelligent Mexicans, or whatever, that eventually these are people that would come around, because I truly do feel like I am in the right here. But if you just scream at these people and shout them down and shun them and boycott them, that you never really, they're just going to become more extreme, and they're going to pick up more extremist fans.
I don't think I understand the context though of that though. The last little bit.
Oh, so I guess or I guess to bring it back to what we were originally talking about, if JonTron is a race realist, that's a conversation that I want everybody to have then, right? Instead of just saying, instead of going one of two ways, instead of either saying, well, he didn't mean that, or saying, okay, he meant that, we need to boycott him for everything. Okay, well, let's say some people do believe that there are races that are intrinsically different. Let's talk about that, okay? Because one of the biggest crimes of the entire world is there are so many issues we talk about, whether it's related to race or gender or whatever other thing, that actually come down to class. Rich black men in the United States don't have the same problems as poor black men living in the ghetto, or poor white people living in a shithole in Indiana, right? Class.
I would agree with that. Yeah. So, sure.
So I would.
Well, okay.
Yeah, I'd love to have these kinds of conversations. Sorry, go on.
What I'm kind of confused about though is, do we know okay. When you're having the conversation, especially when it comes down to things like immigration, integration of different type of disparate cultures and that sort of thing, it's really easy to assume that it's going to be directed towards race realism, but you have to be careful because a lot of people, I've found, a lot of people will forego allowing for the nuance of each individual person and instead make very, very broad, wide proclamations based on either geography, sometimes racial or religious lines, and that sort of thing. And they want to talk in generalities because they just want to make broad, open strokes to try and talk about larger issues and larger solutions. So for myself, I would have to go back. I'd have to watch the talk between you and John again
Mm-hmm.
before I could say which way I feel it was going. I'm just trying to be charitable for the sake of the
Sure.
conversation. Do you feel like, a couple weeks after, actually probably like 4 or 5 weeks after, fuck, it's been a while ago. After all this time since talking with John, do you feel very confident in that he was not necessarily just talking in huge generalities, but you feel like he might actually be a race realist?
Uh, if so, there's either one of two things, and I lean more towards the second one. The first one is that JonTron is incredibly racist, or not incredibly, but is a racist, is a race realist, and believes that, which is
Okay.
possible. I think, I think the second more likely thing. You said you're heavily involved into gaming.
I like to think so. Yeah.
Okay, I very much have enjoyed our conversation. So tell me if you've noticed this signal chain, okay?
Okay.
And if you're familiar with like the Sargon of Akkad and the Stefan Molyneux and everything, right?
Carl's actually a friend of mine. Yeah.
Oh shit. Okay, so you
It's
you
fine.
have
No,
you
I
ha-
criticize the shit out of Sargon all the fucking time. He's my buddy. It's all right. It's
Sure.
okay.
So you have this signal chain that starts in the gaming world, okay? And so what
Yeah.
you get is first you are on the anti-SJW train. For good reason. There are a lot of legitimate criticism, and maybe you even started out in Gamergate, right? A lot of people were caught up in that initially, and and I thought Gamergate had some legitimate shit. Like there are tons of
Sure.
issues with cronyism and nepotism in fucking games journalism. Game journalism is a fucking joke, and I was 100% full on the Gamergate shit initially, right? But I noticed that there was like this trending from not only were people were not against SJWs, they defined themselves by their anti-SJW isms. And that became like the
Oh.
summation of their character. Like, hey, who are you?
Mm.
Hey, I'm an anti-SJW. Oh, I'm also a human being that has other thoughts. But really, I'm just, every single thing in my life is defined by my anti-SJW. And I've noticed that being anti-SJW also conversely makes you anti-PC culture, which starts to get you drawn into the conservative right-leaning culture of being anti-PC, anti-Democrat, anti-left-leaning, anti-affirmative action,
Hey,
anti-BLM.
I have to say,
Uh-huh.
conservatism is the new punk rock.
Oh, don't even start me on that, dude. Was that a Paul Joseph Watson?
That was a
Oh
Paul
god.
Joseph Watts reference.
So and then you get from there you get onto the Trump train, right? So what you've done is you've taken one idea, which is I hate SJWs, which is probably an okay idea. I don't like SJWs, and then you've
Sure.
rode that train through all of these narratives, and now you find yourself. I guess I'm a full-on Trump supporter, even though I don't know anything about economics. I don't know anything about immigration. I don't know anything about foreign policy. I guess I'm just a Trump supporter. And so I think that what happened was, so following JonTron, I know that JonTron has been involved in drama in the past. I think it was for calling his computer retarded. I don't even know. It was something like that, or saying autistic or something, where he got witch hunted by SJWs, found himself an anti-SJW company, and then started to read the anti-SJW, I would call it the propaganda, right? And in doing so, found himself surrounded by people from Pole, and then found himself on a talk show with me, basically machine gun firing out race realist talking points quicker than anybody ever could imagine, maybe without fully understanding what he's saying. That's kind of what I'm leaning more towards the second. I mean, obviously you can tell, like, I'm hoping that's kind of what happened, that JonTron and all of his anti-SJW, anti-PC stuff just found himself in these communities that also happen to be race realist,
Sure, sure. I think that's probably that's honestly a pretty charitable interpretation of it, and I think that's probably pretty close. I've been involved in this. I hate using this fucking word. Everybody's gonna
Don't say the
fucking.
skeptic community. What?
Well, I wasn't gonna say skeptic. I was gonna say community. Yeah, I fucking hate that word. And don't even get me fucking started on the word skeptic. Oh, Jesus, I'm stretching while we're talking. But you have a point, and you're not necessarily wrong. But the thing is that when you get involved with going anti-PC, because like you said before, you're borderline anti-theist at this point, and politically correct used to be, and you're old enough to remember this, of course. Politically correct used to be motivated purely on the basis of religious oppressive ideologies. The Christianity was telling us what was supposed to be good taste and what was not. There was a point in time where you can't play D&D or you're worshiping the devil and you're gonna beat your family to death with a baseball bat. And then you got Jack Thompson with, you can't play video games because the Lord says it's gonna make you worship Satan and whatever. All this kind of crazy shit. But now we live in a time where this oppressive PC culture is no longer being pushed by religious ideology, but instead hardcore, like far left. I don't want to say liberal because it's not very liberal, but far left ideologies. And so it's really intoxicating, really easy when you get burned to fall into the anti-SJW crowd. And it's actually a lovely crowd. There's wonderful people, lovely people.
There are also crazy people.
I know, and I know you and Sargon had your differences.
Oh yeah,
but. Carl's a wonderful guy. He's a really nice dude to sit down and talk to. When you're not having a fight, he's actually a great guy. I've had fights with him,
sure,
but I've also had lots of times where I wasn't fighting with him.
I guess you have to be really careful. Or sorry, go on. And then,
but you're right though, because people can fall into that trap, and they can go so far that they end up falling. I'd say even fucking tumbling into the furthest extreme, and that's the horseshoe theory. You start out at one side, you get shit talked by one extremist, and you get so repulsed, you go all the way around the horseshoe until you're pretty much the same fucking thing, just on the other side.
Yeah.
And it's up to each individual person to pump the brakes and stop before they fall into just some other ridiculous ideology.
Yeah, and that's what I wish that people would do. Like, at some point, you have to stop and look at your company, and you have to see, are the people that are standing beside you really the people that represent what you believe the most, And like, I find out, and I'm in those situations so much, where, like, I am a very, probably, I don't even know if I would consider myself left-leaning or not. I guess it depends on where you fall on the political spectrum, but I'm left-leaning for sure, right? And I find myself being left-leaning, and I hate these race realists and all these, but at the core, I'm still very much an American, and I believe in a lot of American ideas, right? So when I find that a bunch of people are in my corner, screaming things like, you're aware of like the Richard Spencer punching thing that happened, right? So like, yeah. Regardless of your feelings on it, like, I don't think we should be violently beating people up for political discourse. Like, it's just not, I don't think that's how the United States should work, right? And when you find yourself surrounded by people like, yeah, punching Nazis, so good, like, it's like, well, damn, dude, like 2 years ago, you guys were calling me a fucking Nazi. People still call me a fucking Nazi, depending on what I'm talking about. Like, nah, dude, this is not cool. Too. Like, and you have to be careful. Like, and it happens the same thing with PC culture. Like, PC culture means very different things to very different people. So, like,
it really does.
When I say I am anti-PC culture, because I do consider myself anti-PC culture to some extent, when I say that, I think that colleges should be a free exchange of ideas. I hate Ben Shapiro, but I don't think he should ever be disbarred from talking at a college campus. Ben Shapiro,
I find him charming.
Sure.
He's charming.
But Ben Shapiro, Milo Yiannopoulos, whoever, any of these guys that I disagree with every single fucking thing they say should still be allowed to talk at colleges. These are where people are supposed to have their ideologies challenged. So, like, I would say I am anti-PC culture. I don't believe that we should police speech here. But then when you find yourself standing a bunch of other people like, yeah, dude, I'm anti-PC culture too. Women are fucking dumb bitches and they need to stay in the kitchen all the time. Like, and people don't want to hear this. People don't want to hear this because they're PC. And it's like, whoa, hold on, dude, pump the brakes. Like, that's not. Or like, yeah, dude, black people are predisposed to having 75 IQ. Amen, dude, fuck this PC culture. It's like, whoa, that's not what I mean by anti-PC culture, dog. Like, you went full fucking retard in like 2 seconds. And like, I've noticed that, and it's really funny. It's really funny because I'm sure you know who Thunderfoot is, right?
Oh, I'm very familiar with Phil Mason. Yeah.
So Thunderfoot built an audience with the anti-SJW community. Now, Thunderfoot, I actually thought for the longest time, I thought that he was an extremist right-leaning person. He's not. He's actually very left-leaning.
He's very left-leaning.
But the funny thing is, if you go to Thunderfoot's channel and you look at his most popular videos, like 20 of the top 50 are bashing feminists. But the funny thing is, when you look at the videos of him shit-talking the United Kingdom for Brexit or making fun of Trump, half of the fucking video is thumbs down by his fan base, because this is the fan base you build when you only talk about like one thing, you know.
Everybody expected that he was always going to be a right-leaning guy because of his viewpoints on social justice and like social issues and that sort of thing. And it turns out that actually no, he does not like fucking Trump. He was not in favor of Brexit. Yeah, you know, it's wild. It's very, very wild. I got a little annoyed with Phil, like with his proselytizing about the whole Brexit thing.
Sure.
But you know, I still think he's a fucking hero. Like I got involved with YouTube because of science and pseudoscience and that sort of thing. And I ended up branching into social justice because social justice was branching into science. Same as like how Phil got into it with like Rebecca Watson and all that kind of shit. So I have a lot of kinship and love with Phil. But he does go a little crazy on the Brexit stuff.
Sure. But I mean, like, the same thing kind of happens with Sargon as well, where, like, people keep telling me, Destiny, Sargon is a very liberal person. Sargon is a very left-leaning person. But, like, every video he makes, it seems to be criticizing Trump criticizers and making fun of people that are against Trump. And it's like, at some point, I have to wonder, like, are you trying your hardest to build an audience of these kinds of people while... Are you planning on pulling like the secret liberal hijinks like later on? Will you do the switcheroo or what?
Well, you know, so there's been there was an interesting conversation. I've had it with Sargon. It's all been public, so I'm not sharing some insider scoop on the skeptic community or whatever the fuck it's supposed to be called these days. But you know, so I talked to Sargon one day because there's a question of the moderate right, right? And how do you define what is the moderate right? Because, you know, for all intents and purposes, you saying that Richard Spencer shouldn't be punched, in some people's eyes, that makes you, Destiny, a far right-winging goddamn Nazi. Yeah.
A fucking Nazi, yeah.
Yeah. According to some people, that makes you a fucking Nazi. You might as well just be like fucking Sieg Heiling all over the goddamn place, you know? Which is preposterous as fuck. But it shows that people's definitions are very malleable. It could change.
Sure.
So Sargon was talking about the moderate right, and he mentioned Stephen Crowder, Paul Joseph Watson, and Stefan Molyneux.
Wait, these are his example of the moderate right?
Well, no, hang on.
Oh, okay.
Hang on.
All right.
Here's the question, though. Is he wrong? Because if you think about moderate means to be somewhat in the middle. If you're going to be a little bit left, but still you're on the right, but you're a little bit left, you're leaning more towards the center, you're going to think about people who are more involved with news organizations that are still on the right, like Fox News, Talking Points, maybe Tucker Carlson, that kind of thing. He's obviously right-leaning, but he's still more of a centrist than people on the political sphere.
Or like Shep Smith would be a good example of like a...
No, Shep Smith is neither right nor left. Shep Smith is adorable. He is so adorable and so incredibly charming. I love Shep Smith. He is so funny. He needs to talk about True Blood more often. I fucking love Shep Smith.
I see him. He's very vocal when he feels like things are fucked on the Republican side. I like that he doesn't seem to hardcore buy into like a party line. I think he's a man of integrity. I like that.
I adore Shep Smith. Adore him. But you know, and then if you want to go far rightist, you're trudging into like neo-Nazi territory, white nationalists, that sort of thing. So who is in the middle? And so when I think about it, I'm like, okay, well, Paul Joseph Watson, he's not a white nationalist, but he also is not charitable towards the left. I guess that kind of makes him a right moderate-ish, I suppose. Sure. I guess. I'm not comfortable saying that because I don't like Paul Joseph Watson at all. But I guess I can kind of see it. Steven Crowder, he's a comedian before he's a political pundit. So, like, okay, fine. I'll agree with that. But, like, Stefan Molyneux is a race realist. So I was like, dude, Sargon, Carl, I love you. I don't think he's a moderate. And so we got into a conversation. He's like, I never said I like the fucking guy. I never said he's not fucking crazy. But on the political sphere, I still think he's moderate. I'm like, okay, I can understand your point of view on that. So it depends on like how people are defining it for themselves.
Yeah, I guess like it sounds like your definition revolves very much around kind of like racially oriented issues, like how I don't want to say how racist you are, but where you fall like in terms of race realism is a big determining factor for where they fit in on the right for you.
That would probably be a pretty big determining factor for me in specific. Yeah.
Gotcha. That's interesting. I guess I've never really thought about it that way. Like I would consider people like Sean Hannity or Rush Limbaugh to be very far on the right, but I don't think either of them are race realists per se, or like O'Reilly.
I would agree. Okay, think about this. Did you say Glenn Beck?
I didn't say Beck, but I would consider him to be.
Oh, would you say he's far right?
He's very he's a I would call him an evangelical libertarian. I don't know where that puts him.
I don't know where that puts him either.
Because he's very critical of Trump, and he has the things that he believes in very much.
Sure.
But I would say yeah. For the most part, he's probably pretty far to the right. I would say yeah.
Because like, don't get me wrong, I don't like Glenn Beck. I listen to him all the time. I don't like him.
Mm-hmm.
But I listen to him all the time. But so here's a really good here's how confusing things have gotten. Here's how wild things are getting right now. And like we need to pay attention to these types of things so that we can actually find ways we can communicate with each other when we disagree.
Mm-hmm.
Glenn Beck, the day of the Pulse nightclub shooting, says he comes live onto his show. It's not recorded, it's not prepared, it's nothing like that. And he says there's been a terrible act of terror that has happened against the United States, has struck at the very foundation of our being, and that is our ability to live free and enjoy our life the way we want to live. I know not everybody in my audience is going to feel the same way that I do. I know a lot of you out there feel like some people's lifestyles might be wrong, but that doesn't change that whether or not you feel you can support their lifestyle, these are still Americans and we should still love them. So tonight my heart goes out to all of the people at the Pulse nightclub shooting. And that was a statement from a hardcore evangelical Christian being like, it doesn't matter that they were gay butt fuckers. They were American and I love them. And that's more important. So that made me have to stop and be like, well, how the fuck do I feel about Glenn Beck now? Jesus Christ.
Yeah, the reason why it was so hard for me to classify Glenn Beck is because Glenn Beck is very fucking principled. I disagree with a lot of his principles, but he's very principled in terms of like being like espousing what I consider to be some core American ideals.
Can't be a moderate and be sexist as fuck.
And that's at least something, you know. Like you can give the guy some credit for that, you know, even if he can be, you know, a giant jackass otherwise and spew a bunch of stupid shit, but. Sure. You know, it's difficult. This type of situation is really difficult to try and find those determining factors. It's wild. I don't know. Yeah, there was another one that I wanted to get on topic with, but I also really need to piss. I don't know if you want to just kind of kill it here or take a break, so like a piss or something, or.
Yeah, if you want to go to the restroom, I can chill for a sec.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm enjoying myself. If you are too.
Yeah, go ahead, knock yourself out.
All right, cool. Be right back. We're still talking. I'm just gonna go to the bathroom.
Oh shit! What if they start domestically abusing each other? He didn't mute his microphone. Wait, what? So are we going back to war with Syria, or can somebody tell me what's going on? What's are we actually doing this? What is he gonna do? Start nuking fucking Assad? Yankee, can you please just tell me, was this a false flag? I can't tell, dude. I don't know, man. I see so much conflicting shit on both sides at this point. Why the fuck would Assad... The best explanation that I've been given for what could have happened was that Assad doesn't necessarily have control of his generals the way that you would think he does, and that maybe some of his generals went a little bit fucking crazy and did these chemical weapon attacks. Like... It wasn't. This is disinformation. Came from Russia?
Yes, you're an adorable kid. Hello.
Was it Roger Stone? No,
I know.
It was somebody in the other committee
funny.
was talking about how this is how that Russian propaganda
Kid
works.
is
That they
absolutely
started in Russian,
adorable,
and then it
Oh
gets
my God.
amplified in the West.
So I just realized something.
What's up?
We have not yet actually really strongly disagreed with anything. We got to disagree about something because the internet thrives on spicy. What's up, baby?
I need a USB that works.
That USB doesn't work?
Nope.
Oh, here. Oh, shit. Here, take the USB drive.
Oh, might have been that guy. Yeah, you're right.
But yeah, like the internet thrives on spicy. You know, everybody wants us to like be at each other's throats. You know, that's like how the internet works. So we gotta find something that we disagree on. So I propose.
Well, we can talk about Trump's proclivity to war. There's a lot of shit. Oh, I copy pasted you one tweet. There's a lot of shit going on right now.
Oh no!
Holy shit!
I don't know if we're gonna disagree on that one either, though, because I've been, as much as I might have voted for him, I never really necessarily was like a huge supporter.
Yeah, I hear that from a lot of people.
I was hoping for the best.
I voted for Hillary, but it was not a vote. I don't know, man. That was a hard fucking election. God damn, dude.
Not a very comfortable vote, then, I take it?
No. I'm ashamed to say that she was the first person I voted for. I was actually motivated enough to go to the polls and do it, and it was felt dirty coming out of that poll booth. God, I fucking hated her, man. And watching her fucking disappear 3 weeks after the election and not say a fucking word while Bernie's still sitting there like tweeting like every fucking day multiple times about all the issues and like Hillary just fucking vanishes. I don't even think she was at the fucking women's march. Oh my God.
Well, hey, at least she got you to Pokemon Go to the poll, you know? So there's that, I suppose.
Maybe she was just running on a CP time.
Yeah, I suppose so. So here's one that I made a video about it here recently. Since we started out, we were talking about Islam and Muslims and that sort of thing. How do you feel about the notion of the Reformation of Islam?
So I guess I don't really believe in widespread
Buddy.
I got you, Buckaloo. Hang on.
There's Mama. He needs food. He's hungry.
How
Sorry
old
about
is
that.
he?
He's 4.
Oh, gotcha. I have one that just turned 6, so.
Oh, congrats.
I understand your struggles sometimes. Oh, fuck. What did you just ask me? I totally lost my train of thought.
The Reformation of Islam.
Oh, I don't know. I don't necessarily believe, like, so this goes back to those things that I said earlier in terms of religion being, this is how I view religion. You've got a scripture, and then insofar as Catholicism goes, you've got a scripture, and then you've got your lead dude, who in Catholicism is the Pope, right? From there you get your official teachings, you get the like the catechism. In the Catholic Church, we've got the catechism, which is like our rule book, right? What you're allowed to do in Catholic, right? So these exist to the very top, and almost nobody knows about them and nobody cares about them, right? From the top, you have like archbishops, archdioceses. You've got these very large regional things that get a little bit more relevant to a community. Then you get down a step closer, and you've got smaller regions. You've got maybe citywide parishes and whatnot. And then you get into your individual churches. And what happens is the interpretation of scripture becomes very personalized based on who you talk to. So a Catholic that lives in Oklahoma or a Catholic from, the deep red Texas or whatever is going to have a very different interpretation of what it means to be a Catholic than a Catholic from Oregon or a Catholic from Washington, right?
Sure.
So when you talk about a reformation, I just don't see... I know that in Catholicism, and I would even go as far, I would feel comfortable expanding this to all of Christianity, there is no widespread reformation that can happen. It has to be a cultural thing that involves every single person and that is involved in all sorts of communities that happens gradually over time. You'll never see like one leader of any religious faith say, this is what we believe, and then everybody kind of like falls over like dominoes. I think it's a very slow moving, slow progressing thing that just happens over time. And I would point to like, a lot of people talk about like, well, the church went through a reformation. Like, yeah, it did in the 1600s, but we also burned people at the stake for being witches after that. Like, the church wasn't really that good post-Reformation, you know? And it's only been like really in the past 50, 60 years. Well, not really, right? But over the past hundreds of years, you've seen the church become more secular, or I guess people leaving the church are becoming more secular. And that's kind of where all of our modern day ethics and values have come from, right? Not necessarily from a reformation of Christianity, but more like of an abandonment of those fundamentalist ideas. All right, sorry.
No, it's fine. So the main source of this was I did a video there. Are you familiar with Ayaan Hirsi Ali?
No, I don't. Is it a Muslim dude?
No, it's a woman.
Okay, sorry.
No, it's fine. You know, it's names and shit. She was subjected to female genital mutilation when she was younger. She was supposed to get into an arranged marriage. Her father set it up. She fled, went to, I believe it's Holland. Okay. And from Holland, she started going to school. She continued to go to school. She got her degree, and she is now a public speaker. She lives in the United States, and she goes around and she talks about Muslim Reformation. She just recently she had to cancel her invite to Australia to go and talk about bringing secular ideas to Muslim people and to reforming Islam into something that is more workable with Western ideas, or at least supporting people who are escaping Islam in shitty situations, you know, specifically from like places where they would have been oppressed or put into really, really dangerous situations.
Some of the African Muslim countries, or some of the like some of the Gulf Muslim countries like the Saudi Arabia, you know.
Especially in the Levant. The Levant is like the big source of fucking contention right now. Like if you talk to somebody in the UAE or Qatar, they usually have the same attitude, which is Saudi Arabia. We love Saudi Arabia. We love our Saudi Arabian brothers. We don't understand why they have such fucked up and really crazy rules. But as far as the Levant goes, that is a fucking shit show. Or it's a total shit show. Like most moderate Muslims will tell you that much.
Sure.
But Ayaan Hirsi Ali, she had to cancel her invite because of security concerns. People started making threats. All of these Australian Muslim women made a video and signed a petition to basically convince her not to come because, like, you don't speak for us. Your conversation anti-Islam is like the patriarchy and white supremacy and blah blah blah. It was just the most ridiculous thing I'd ever heard. Because this woman is a hero. She's started charities to support Muslim women who were subjected to either domestic abuse or emotional, physical abuse in the United States, to try and like get them somewhere safe. A charity specifically for that. The woman's a hero. She's brilliant. She's written several books. She's great. She believes she doesn't believe in trying to convince people to leave Islam and adopt secularism, but she believes in a reformation of Islam to more of a westernized ideal. And it's not an impossible goal, because Islam as it was during the golden age of Islam was nothing like what we see today. It was nothing like what we see today. Sure. Science was an integral part of Islam. If we discovered something that challenged the notions of Islam, they were like, well, that's just as Allah wills it. We've discovered another truth about the universe. Like if it seems like that gets in the way of Islam, just ignore that. No, this is a brilliant discovery. Just fuck it, whatever. Let's just keep going, you know? And that's how it used to be. So I think Reformation is kind of an important idea, a really important idea.
Yeah, I mean, so I don't disagree. I guess it's just the ways in which you would enact that reformation. So, like, when I spoke of, like, I don't think that getting 4 or 5 influential imams together is going to cause the religion to reform. I think that the most important thing that you need to have this activity start, and this is in my opinion, and people that are, I don't know, I would be interested in somebody that's like super well-versed in foreign policy, but from the little bit that I know, it seems like the most important thing that needs to happen is there needs to be stability in the Middle East. That has to happen. You cannot, that's like, who do you even talk to at that point? Like, tell Russia to fuck off, tell the United States to fuck off, tell NATO to fuck off, how does that even work? Yeah, but like, you're never going to get moderate people out of failed states like Syria or Iraq to some extent over the past 10 years, before they got their shit back together, or Lebanon. You're not going to get, or Yemen. I'm sorry, whatever the southeast one is there in the Gulf.
Yemen, yeah.
Yeah, Yemen. You're not going to get. You're just not going to get any progress out of these countries. It's not like people don't give a fuck about moderating their views towards women, right? When you talk about, and it's funny because people on the right even make fun of feminists for talking about this today. Like feminists today complain about we don't make as much as men, we don't get the right vacation, blah blah blah. And people are oh, that's so funny. That's not even a real feminist issue. Like people have to deal with worse feminist issues all the time in these horrible countries. And I was like, well, yeah, but in those countries they don't give a fuck about those issues because they're just trying to survive. I feel like we need to bring a measure of stability to the Muslim world, and I think that everybody has to get on board with that, like for that to actually start.
Yeah, well, okay, that lends me then to an interesting question.
Mm-hmm.
Saddam Hussein.
Mm-hmm.
Should we have done what we did to Saddam Hussein?
Oh, dude, that's a really fucking complicated.
I know it is. Because think about it like this. So we destabilize Iraq. We take out Saddam Hussein, and that a lot of things happened, and it kind of led to the rise of ISIS. It helped lead to the rise of ISIS. It's not like we created ISIS, but like it helped to provide the breeding ground for extremism to rise. Because of how Saddam Hussein ran his country, which we know this, we understand this,
Sure.
But the bad part is that if we left Saddam Hussein alone, he was a really, really shit piece of work, like a real, absolute dickish piece of work. But he did maintain a very strong, iron-fisted fucking hold on his country. He was really effective in what he did. But he was a mean, nasty, murderous son of a bitch. So then how do you judge like what is the right direction to go?
So I guess you would hope that maybe some sort of Arab Spring, kind of like, it worked in Tunisia. Maybe you would get the people that would eventually, hopefully, move in a direction where they're electing better leaders that are maybe with pressure from the West. You would get because even Russia has moderated its views on like homosexuality to some extent compared to where they were like.
There was some crazy shit that happened this week about that though.
No, sure, I'm sure there are, but by nature of the Olympics being in your country, by nature of you getting international attention, I don't think Saddam was a great leader, but maybe the leader that comes after Saddam is more moderate. Maybe in the way that you treat Iraq, maybe things become more moderated. Look at how we're dropping the embargoes and everything on Cuba. Hopefully that country becomes more moderated as we open up trade between that and let the people prosper and all of that.
Sure.
They're very, very complicated issues, but I don't think that the way that we do things now with our terms of just like picking leaders and deposing leaders, and it just, I guess when I look at it, it seems like we never have the interests of the country at heart. We never really give a fuck about what happens to the people, right?
We as Americans.
Yeah. So when I look at what happened with okay, so very, very basic cursory understanding of what happened in Iraq, right? So Saddam Hussein led the Ba'ath Party, right? The Ba'ath Party were the Shia people that oppressed the fuck out of the Sunnis in the country, right? And that's where a lot of these divides and these resentments kind of pop up, right? You've got a Sunni people that are being repressed as fuck, that are being fucked in all sorts of ways by the Shia government. When we step in and we get rid of Saddam Hussein, not only do we get rid of I'm sorry. It was the opposite. I flipped it. The Ba'ath Party were the Sunni people that were oppressing the Shia majority. I'm sorry, I had that flipped. When we stepped into the country and we deposed Saddam, not only did we get rid of Saddam, we dismantled that entire fucking government. We fucked that government so hard. And if you wanted to work in government, you had to be in that party. So it seemed like at the very start of that campaign, we already set that country up for disaster. To where like the government couldn't function. You had a whole bunch of people stepping in, and it seemed like a switch happened where you had the Ba'ath that were kind of shitting on the Shia majority, and now you put the Shia in power to shit on the Sunni minority. It seemed like that switch kind of happened, and that was like a very, like, when you look at this and you read it, it seemed all of these, like, I don't know, like, I have a lot of questions, like, why did we dismantle the government like that? Why did we support leaders, or a leader, I guess, Maliki, I think was his name, that was so big on this Sunni oppression, that would lock Sunnis up into fucking jails, would torture people, would, would kill all the bodyguards of political opponents in the country, like, crazy shit. It seemed like a really fucking bad deal. And, like, there are so many stories of how ISIS grew off of the backs of that oppression that the United States supported, that it makes me wonder, like, whose interests are we keeping in mind when we prop up, these certain types of leaders,
I could totally tell you exactly what interests we're propping up. We're propping up American interests. It's so funny. It's so funny too, because, I'm a historian at heart. I definitely don't. I'm not as well versed like into anything pre 20th century necessarily. But as far as a 20th century historian, I love being as well versed as I possibly can. And I see so many fuck ups in how we handled Iraq, mirrored in the shit that happened with fucking Vietnam.
Sure,
absolutely,
so,
in how we handle Vietnam, destabilize the fucking government, try and put in like how many different like politicians did we try to put into Iraq after Saddam that failed?
We kept that Maliki guy for a long time, and like even after he lost the election, we still found a way to like keep him as the head of the
keep him relevant, yeah.
As like the head. I don't know if they call it the prime minister or the president, but that dude was fucking crazy. He was unhinged as fuck, dude. And he had a bone to pick. His whole life, he had been fucked by Sunni people. So as soon as he had the opportunity to turn it back around on him, he did. And like I've read stories where like I read so many different stories. I'm not even sure what's true or what's not true, but like ISIS apparently rolled into Mosul looking to break out a few prisoners and shoot a couple police people. And when they rolled through that city, they I think it was like 100 or so ISIS people like accidentally took over the entire city because they found out that they had so much support from the Sunnis in that city, and the people that were there defending it didn't even give a fuck, and they just left. But because the Sunnis there had been so fucked by the now Shia majority the Shia majority government that they were like ready to say like, okay, well, fuck it, we're gonna go and fuck this whole shit up now, and then like that's like all of these things that the United States did. And then it goes back to what you said, where it seems like our only interest there was we just wanted a leader that we were kind of friendly with, right? To fuck up that whole the Syria, Iran, Iraq thing. We wanted to just fuck that up and not give Russia, any kind of power there. So we just wanted a guy that we were friends with, and we didn't give a fuck about what actually happened to the country.
Right, absolutely. No, I mean it was the same exact thing that we had with what was his name? Nguyen Van Thieu in fucking South Vietnam. We put this fucking guy in place, and he was a goddamn fucking lunatic. He was a fucking lunatic. And he put I think it was his brother as like the head of the security state and that sort of shit. And the whole thing fucking fell apart. It blew up in our goddamn faces. It didn't make any fucking sense. These types of things never fucking work. They never work. We come back to the basic question of what is the better option? Is it a better option for us to go in to remove a brutal dictator and destabilize the region so it leads to a rise in extremism, or do we let the brutal dictator exist and try and find a way to make him less brutal? Like do we by shipments the TV DVD combos of Seinfeld over to Saddam to opiate for the masses for his country? I don't know.
I mean, it seems like that's like the way to go. Like, you either have to go the nuclear option, literally, like with Japan, and like take over the fucking country.
But that never works. That's
why I said with Japan. I mean, it kind of worked with Japan, although like we literally nuked the fuck out of them and helped them rebuild their country. But like, yeah, I agree. But like, if you want to be really frustrated about it, everything that we're talking about, we are doing this right now with Syria and trying to get rid of Assad. Like, and the funny thing is, And this is a big fucking meme that a lot of people on the right talk about that's actually 100% fucking true, is Obama and Clinton can owe themselves to large extent to their own downfall, because all of Europe that's kind of trending towards the right now in response to these refugee crises and all of these shit coming from Syria, the only reason Syria is so fucked is because of a lot of the funding and the help that the United States provided to the people trying to get rid of Assad, because it was another bullshit proxy war where we wanted to go fiddle our little dingle with fucking Russia and another country to try to fuck a dude out so that we can get more influence over a place so that they can't. Like, that whole shit is like repeating itself right now. Like, why can't we just get the fuck out of Syria, let Assad take back his fucking failing country that is falling apart? Like, Syria is literally a failed fucking state. Like, the destruction. Like, if you go and Google pictures of Syria, I don't know if people have Googled pictures of Syria, like, you have to go down pages to find anything that looks real, because it looks like video game, like bad video game art. Like,
it looks like DayZ.
Like, it doesn't even look real. Like, why would anybody even waste money destroying this much of a city? This looks like it's out of a shittily done video game. That's how fucked these cities are. But we're doing it right now in Syria. Like, holy shit.
I mean, it's a valid point, but like, it's the same thing with Assad that we're facing with Saddam Hussein, or that we faced with Saddam Hussein.
Can I one real fast to the point that you said? I'm sorry to cut you off. You talked about how do we get rid of these horrible people? Do you ever think it's funny that the only time we talk about getting rid of these horrible leaders is when it's in the Middle East? How often do we talk about getting rid of horrible leaders in Latin or South America? How often do we talk about getting rid of horrible leaders in Africa? Right?
Well, okay. South America and Africa, we could take them as different entities. South America, by and large, there are huge, beautiful. Jesus, I've had a lot of vodka and limes actually, so I might get a little sloppy, but I'm still on point. My mind is sharp. Chow, 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 chow. Anyway, so South America, it's true. There is definitely some pretty brutal dictators out there, but as far as I'm aware, there have not been chemical weapon usage on any mass populations in South America. So because of that, I would say that that's a little bit different. South America is a really interesting dynamic, especially when you get into types of political landscapes that we are not necessarily very comfortable with, like Venezuela. Venezuela was interesting. You had Chavez in there. Chavez seemed like he was going to be the best fucking thing since sliced bread. For a while during his reign, it seemed like things were actually really starting to work. Venezuela is fucked now. Fucked. But not for lack of trying. So good on you, Venezuela. But Africa is so different. You can't really take any of the rules that we've learned throughout the rest of the world and apply them to Africa. Africa doesn't work that way. It never has. For one, Africa is one of the largest land masses on the fucking planet, and it's hugely diverse, not just in its geography, but in like the people, the types of government. If you want to go to like smaller locations, like say Liberia, which is a hellhole, then I could see it. There's Mozambique is fucking insane.
Syria and the Middle East are so fucked. But that's all we ever talk about. I guess like when you talk about like chemical weapons, but I mean, you can find atrocities going on in Africa. Is it really the fact that chemical weapons are the main driving force here? Or is it the fact that we are looking at NATO positioning and we're looking at kind of fucking over Russia? That's what it always seems to come back to,
We're looking at Western attention towards resources, and there's not Western attention towards resources in Liberia, but there is in the Middle East.
I don't even know if it's so much that. Like, I used to think about the oil thing, but I think we get dude, is it like 10 or 15% in the United States of our oil from the Middle East? And I mean, like Saudi Arabia and whatnot, like these guys are fine. Like, they're not going under anytime soon. Like, I don't know. It feels like when you look at a country like Syria, right? What is Syria to Russia? Syria is Russia's only warm water port, I think, or it might have one other, right? The port of Tartus, right? Like, that's Russia's big interest in Syria. And, Russia is very friendly with Assad. And that's like Russia's, claim to fame in that reason is that in Iran. So it's like when we spend so much time over there dealing with that, and it seems like we don't talk about anything going on in any other parts of the world. Like, there's horrible shit that goes on right south of us in Mexico. But like, if one car bombing happens, somewhere else, like, nobody gives a fuck. Like, I don't know. It feels like everything is so political and not really as related to getting rid of the bad guys, like people try to say.
Well, as far as Syria goes, that's an interesting thing to mention. So there's a couple of different interesting parts that are coming through when it comes to like the Middle East and when it comes to Russia and why Russia gives a shit and why Russia has been like aggressively pushing things in the Middle East. So we have sanctions on Russia. We've had
Yeah.
sanctions for a
Well,
while, right?
I don't know. I think we do right now. Maybe Trump has rolled them back during this conversation, but
No. As much as it seems like he's ponying up to Putin, he has not lifted any sanctions.
sure. Yeah, no, I
Which
know.
I will give him. I'll give him that much credit. He has not lifted any sanctions
For now, yeah.
now. Yeah, and I don't give Trump very much credit, but I'll give him that much credit. There has always been an effort, and it continues to be an effort. And this is what this whole thing is about. And it's been about this for a really long time. If anybody out there who's listening, pull up a fucking Google Maps, and look at Turkey, Iran, Syria, Iraq, that sort of thing, and look at where Russia has access to try and put pipelines to be able to shunt their oil into the ocean, not seas, not into the Mediterranean, because they can't go into the Mediterranean. There's way too many things they have to navigate for. There has always been a push, a massive fucking push for Russia to try and get around the economic sanctions that we've been putting onto them that has devastated their fucking economy. They want to recoup that without having to capitulate to our demands. So they want to increase their oil trade. So that's what this whole thing is about. It's what's always been about. And
yeah, to some extent. I mean, there's some oil that is like literally like they have fields that we're not even going to let them mine, even though the deals have been signed because of sanctions. They'll never get back. But I'm sure economic things play into it as well.
Yeah, and that's just like it's a huge part of why this type of thing keeps being a huge issue and why there keeps being these, unfortunately, people in third world fucking countries who are suffering because there are these larger powers that are trying to play this economic power play between, whatever they're picking a fight with. And it's unfortunate. It's terribly unfortunate.
Sure. I've heard theories that Israel and Turkey are both very keen on the destabilization of Syria because they're worried that Syria is trying to build a pipeline to the Mediterranean, which would mean that Turkey and Israel would lose their exclusive access to being able to pump oil out there.
That would actually kind of make a little bit of sense. I don't know about Turkey though. Turkey is in like fucking crazy turmoil right now. Everything's absolutely wild.
Well, kind of. I mean, are you talking about like with the coup stuff or?
Yeah, well, I mean, Turkey was established at its very core to be a secular nation. Like that was the whole point of Turkey was we are, remnants of the Ottoman Empire. We're supposed to be an Islamist country, but we are going to build our country on secular fucking ideals. And that's starting to be eroded. It's starting to fall apart.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know much about Turkey. The only thing I've heard about Turkey is that like every couple of years the military has to have a coup to keep the leader in check. Apparently they do this pretty often. I don't know all about Turkey really.
And that was true. That was true for a while. But the problem right now is that the current leader Erdogan.
I call him Aragorn, but yeah, Erdogan, I think.
Aragorn. So the current leader of Turkey, Aragorn, is absolutely in. If I'm not mistaken, he's in bed with the Muslim Brotherhood.
He might be. I've heard that he is pretty extremist, like fundamentalist, like religiously. I don't know how true that is, but I've heard that.
Yeah. And so it's kind of like eroding the basic ideals behind the secular idea of Turkey, which it promotes religious freedom. You can be as Muslim as you want to be, but at this point, they're borderline like having people lobbying for Sharia law in Turkey, and that's a scary concept.
Sure. Hopefully, when the next elections roll around, that gets pushed back. Right. Hopefully.
We can hope, I suppose. I don't know. First Turkey, then there's Greece. It's the pipeline up into fucking Europe, and all those comfortable Europeans sitting in their feather beds that are scared as shit. But it's wild, man.
Yeah, I don't like all the games that go on in the Middle East. It makes it very hard to have a rational political national discourse, or I'm sorry, rational national discourse on what's going on. Like, what should we do, right? Because the politicians will have one conversation. It's kind of funny. Hillary's public-private position, comes back where they talk to us about whatever it is they want to do in the Middle East, but like, well, what's actually going on in the Middle East? Like, has any politician ever spoken about the Middle East and its importance in fucking Russia? I don't know if I've ever heard somebody talk about that.
No, not usually.
So, but it's obviously a major thing, I've heard like personal accounts that not personally, but I've read like personal accounts that Putin has sworn that he would never let what happened to Gaddafi happen to Assad. That he is like personally fucking invested in making sure that Assad is not detoppled. And you even have China stepping in now to send help, to send training and special forces and shit to Syria to make sure that they're not going to be detoppled. So it's like, I don't know what. I don't know. That whole area is just so fucked. Everything is so fucked, and nobody wants to be honest or have a conversation about what the fuck is actually going on with anything. And
of course they don't. Yeah. No.
And then on top of that, and then like anytime you do any reading into it and you see like the 50 million different complicated issues, and then like the whole national discourse or international discourse right now is about the evils of Islam, and it's like there's so much more going on than the fucking religion right now. Like,
yeah, I mean, it's just going to be all about propaganda and what people who are very comfortable in their lifestyles. We live in the West. Mm-hmm. We live in the West. We're very comfortable. We can sit back and like I can make videos shitting on bad pseudoscience or like regressive social justice and make a fucking living. You can play video games and make a living, that sort of thing. There are people out there who are just living their lives day to day, and then they hear something that like, did you know that them Islamists are gonna come and kill you? And people get scared. They get scared.
Yeah.
They get terrified about the idea that maybe they might have to pay another fucking $1 a gallon in gas,
So here's kind of a question. I'm curious, since this is kind of tangentially related. You said you debunk pseudoscience. How do you feel about Trump's stance on vaccines and global warming?
Oh, do not get me started on the vaccine thing. Jesus fucking Christ. Like, okay, again, I thought this is all going to be bluster.
One of the saddest things I saw in my entire life. Do you know anything about Ben Carson?
I do.
So, Ben Carson, I fucking hate him, okay? Ben Carson was one of the smartest and sharpest neurosurgeons, like, in the world. Like, he was a leading person, a leading surgeon. I think he pioneered the surgery to disjoin at the head conjoined twins. Like, impossibly fucking complicated shit. Like, the top. And when posed the question of, do you think Trump is right? This was like Carson's chant. I thought we were going to see the fucking, who's the black dude from Rocky or whatever? I thought we were going to see this guy jump out on stage out of Carson's body. I
Cassius Clay?
Yeah. I thought we were about to see Carson go full fucking ham on Trump. I was like, this is how Carson is going to distinguish himself in these debates and come out firing. Creed, Apollo Creed, yeah.
Apollo Creed.
I thought that when he was asked, do you remember, I don't know if you saw this debate, he was asked, what do you think about Trump's position that vaccines cause autism? And Carson was like, well, I don't necessarily think that, but maybe Trump is right that we give too many at one point in time. I was like, dude, this is your chant. How are you going to bend over to the, are you serious? Oh my God.
I just realized that your audience can't see me fucking head slap. So, yeah, no, fuck, dude. That was terrible. That was so fucking terrible. How the fuck can you do that? Like, and the thing about Ben Carson, this is what stings the most. This is what bothers me the most about it. Ben Carson is not a dumb guy. He's not a dumb guy.
He shouldn't be, right?
No, he's a leading neuroscientist. He's a fucking brain surgeon. You're a brain surgeon!
But did you hear? Sorry, go ahead. Did you hear his comments on the gay shit? Where he's like, where they asked him, do you think homosexuality is like nature or nurture? He's like, well, here's the real question. There are a lot of guys that go into jail, and then when they come out, they're gay. Now, something's going on there.
I remember that. Yes.
What's going on? Or just recently, he said, like, I could zap a probe in your brain, and you could remember exactly every word out of a textbook 60 years ago. It's like, what are you talking about?
No, you can't. No, you can't.
That's not how the brain works. You should know. That's like his area, right? Yeah, I don't know, dude. Shit is crazy, man.
It's what happens. You let politics try and get in the
Take
realm
over
of
your
fucking.
brain.
Yeah, well, try and get into like science literacy and that kind of thing. It's the same kind of battle that you find with anything. Um, you got people. You got people believing all sorts of kind of crazy ass shit, man. There's like small level politicians out there that'll promote the use of fucking using industrial bleaches to squirt up the assholes of fucking autistic children to cure them of autism. It happens. It fucking happens. Like, oh, your kid's autistic. Well, let me put this chlorine dioxide into a douchebag and squirt it up his asshole, and that's totally gonna fix him. Like that. People believe these types of things, and low-level politicians will believe that. But when you get to the national scale, when you're supposed to be a goddamn presidential candidate, you're not supposed to fall into those stupid intellectual traps. Somebody should have told Ben Carson to stop.
Or to start, or to turn it on and show us like it blows my mind. It's very sad to me that like you went from Obama, who, and I'm gonna play the race card really hard here. Obama was a black person that sounded very articulate. He sounded very well educated. He spoke very well. And then and now on the Republican side, you've got an up and coming another black candidate who, for all intents and purposes, is very fucking smart, who just sounded so stupid and so uninspired and so boring. Like, this is a guy that graduated from fucking med school as a leading neurosurgeon. Like, I expected, like, if I were to read, a paper, like a summary of each of the candidates, I would have expected Ben Carson to be one of the sharpest tongued people on that stage, like at a cruise level of speaking, like very witty, very intelligent, ruthlessly, like hammering home the points. But instead, now he's like the leading of the housing and urban development.
I feel like I could have walked up to Brent Carson and like cracked my knuckles, and he would have given me his lunch money. Like, I really feel that
maybe way. If Jeb didn't run up to do it instead.
You know what? As fucking terrible as Jeb Bush was, you gotta give that guy at least some credit. The dude knows his memes. He knows his memes.
Yeah, he was, but those are some sad memes, dude. Oh,
he was
pretty. He showed up and he was like, "My last name is Bush. I'm here to collect my nomination." And when he didn't get it, he totally fucking fell apart.
Oh man, I bet he's gonna have more memes for us here in the future. But yeah, that was terrible. The climate change is terrible. The climate change is absolutely fucking terrible.
The global warming hoax by China.
Everything so far with Trump when it comes to science has been fucking terrible. Has been fucking terrible.
Thunderfoot's big issue with him. Yeah.
Right, and I understand that, but like I don't really feel like Hillary was going to necessarily be any fucking different. I really don't. She just would have been terrible in a different way.
Maybe in a different way, but not a scientifically related way, at least.
Like, liberalism doesn't necessarily mean like scientifically friendly. We have a congressman here in Oregon. He's been here for like 30 years or something like that, and he is the biggest anti-GMO activist in the world.
Bernie was, like, I think, anti-GMO as well, and anti-nuclear
Bernie
power.
Bernie was anti-GMO, anti-nuclear power, both of which I'm huge supporters of. I love genetic engineering technology. I love nuclear technology. I'm all about it. I fucking love that shit.
Sure.
But how do you, and that's the problem. That's the problem that you find yourself in. Like, if you're a scientifically literate person, I am all about the future. I am a futurist. Sure. All this political ideology, all the things that we like bants about and we might take the piss out of each other about, I don't give a fuck about any of this. Not fucking really. It's fun. It's fun to take the piss out of it. But me, beyond my videos, I am interested in the future. That's what I'm more interested in. So science is my pornography, and that's the realm that I'm really interested in. And neither of the two ideological divides of the political spectrum represent me whatsoever.
I guess, like, in terms of the appointment issues, or in terms of the important, like, scientific issues, I would disagree. I think that in general, I think that Democrats are a lot more scientifically friendly than Republicans. I think that you can find, there are certain beliefs, like the anti-GMO and anti-nuclear thing, I think you can find. But I think in general, I would say that Democrats are a little bit better about being accepting of things like global warming, being accepting of, like, scientific truth. Like, when you talk about pushing things like this opposition to contraception, or the push for, like, creationism. I don't know if you've heard Mike Pence give his impassioned speech in defense of creationism. He sounds really good. He's a very good speaker. I was almost
He's
convinced by the end of it, but
He's a very good speaker.
yeah. Yeah, I feel like Republicans fall a little bit harder on that anti-science side, just in turn, at the very least, because like of the big issues, like I guess like the really big issue right now is probably global warming. Republicans seem completely in fucking denial of that right now.
I can understand that. You know what? I think maybe one of the reasons why it feels pretty equal for me is just because of where I live. You know, like
Sure.
Oregon is a hard blue state. Most of my friends that I have in this town, they're all like hardcore hippies. You know, these are people who believe that if you stick a crystal up your ass, you're gonna cure your fucking cancer. You know, that kind of fucking
Or
thing.
Steve Jobs, if you eat enough asparagus, it'll cure your cancer, or whatever the fuck his deal was.
Right. So in that glaring situation between that extreme and like the far right extreme, like they kind of equal out for me. But I feel like if I lived somewhere else in the country, I would probably think it more along those lines.
Yeah, typically I try to be very careful on this because it's a large country and you can find any view you want of any side. I try to just go by what politicians push rather than like I know this crazy right winger or left winger. I usually just try to read. So like for instance, like I don't know of any leading Democrats, or if there aren't, like I say, like senators or congressmen or presidents that are saying things like global warming aren't true. Like I don't hear this. I don't think I hear this at all from congressmen on the Democrat side. But like on the Republican side, you've got that in Hopi. I don't remember what his last name was, who threw the snowball to prove that global warming wasn't happening.
Oh my God!
Yeah, I think his last name was. Is it in Hopi? It was like Jim in Hopi or something.
I don't.
But yeah,
remember.
he had. Well, you say global warming is
Yeah.
real, and then he had a Ziploc bag, and he's like, "Well then," and then he takes out the snowball and throws, it, and he's like, "Can you explain that?"
I remember.
So like these are
That's-
like actual senators, not just crazy people that stick crystals up their asses, right? These are not just like rednecks in in Louisiana or whatever. Like these are actual senators that are Inhofe. Maybe, yeah.
Inhofe. Yeah. Inhofe. That's right. Inhofe or Imhoff, something like that. Yeah. No, that's ridiculous. All right. Well, so I think honestly I've had a really good conversation with you. There's a bunch of other topics. Like I've had people for the past hour being like, I want you to ask Steve about his views on blue collar work. I'm like, yeah. But we've been talking about the Muslim thing. I want to talk about the Muslim thing. People being like, ask him about iPhones. I'm like, yeah, but we're talking about the Muslim thing. We're having a conversation about the Muslim thing. It's actually honestly been a pretty good conversation. My suggestion would be when you get into these conversations on Twitter, because you know as well as I do.
I know, dude.
Twitter is not a good medium for having a conversation.
Yep. Well, like you said, it's only for bands, pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah, it's for bans and for shitposting and that sort of thing. Like I take the piss out of everybody, even people I like. And I hope to God people take the piss out of me because, my only requirement is when it's on Twitter, if somebody wants to take the piss out of me, at least be really funny about it. Like take an extra couple of minutes and put my face on some stupid Photoshop, and I will love it forever. I will retweet you making fun of me. I love it.
Sure.
But I guess like so you and I talking just happened because of some stupid misunderstanding on a tweet, I guess.
Yeah, sure, something like that.
Something like that.
I think you said you weren't even going to consider this conversation a debate because I don't have the skills necessary.
Well, I don't know if you do though. I don't know if you do because like, and this is the thing. This is the thing. I'll tell you.
To be fair, you had a funny picture attached to it, so I'll give you credit.
I did it. It was a packlid from Star Trek. You're a Star Trek fan, aren't you?
I'm not. I don't know anything about it. The only Star Trek movies I've watched are the new ones. So how mad are you right now? To me, Khan is Benedict Cumberbatch. He's a very white British man, not a Native American.
Okay. No, that's not. It's not Ricardo Montalban.
Yeah.
I remember the actor who played the original Khan because
well,
I'm that much of a fucking Trek nerd. No, the packlids, that picture that I posted on there. It's there's a scene or this episode where there's this spacecraft is all fucked up. And Enterprise rolls up and they're like, "Do you need assistance?" And like, we look for things things to make us go, and they're like these mentally deficient aliens that somehow have managed to master space flight. And so I had to put that on there just because I was bouncing on you.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. I had to.
Well, if you feel any better, I haven't even figured out faster than light travel yet, so.
Neither have I, so that's totally fine. No, but the thing is, like, when I watch your discussions with people, the problem is like I can go, oh, poo on omni-destiny. He's not good at debating, but it's not like you've actually been debating people who are good at debating.
Yeah, personally, I don't really like to think of it as debating. Like, most of my talks are usually just conversations. Like, for instance, like, people talk about, like, my conversation with JonTron was like a big debate. Like, I mean, if you watch it, most of it was just me asking questions, because I'm usually just trying to find out what he's thinking. Like, that was the main. And then you know, I would typically, the way that my conversations go is I will ask you enough questions to figure out what it is you believe. I'll try to rephrase what you believe. I'll say, so you didn't think this, and then once I rephrase that, then I will bring up points that I think, you know, shows dissonance in what you believe, right? And then that's kind of my conversations. Like, I haven't had like very many formal hardcore debates, except for maybe my conversations with Sargon. But usually when those start, we're usually both pretty heated going into it.
Yeah, but you know, here's the thing though. Like, I am friends with Sargon. I like to think I'm friends with Sargon. I think I'm a friend of Sargon. Maybe after all the times I talk about Sargon when I'm not talking to Sargon, he's not going to think me a friend anymore. But I will tell you honestly, and I've known him for a while. Sargon's not that good at debates. He's not that good at debates. He's a brilliant guy. He's a wonderful sweetheart. He's got a lot of love in his heart. He's a great dude. He's not very good at debates. So when people are like, what'd you think about the Omni-Destiny and Sargon debate? I was like, oh, do I have to watch this? Oh, okay, I'll watch it. Okay. And it was interesting. It was interesting. You both had some interesting points.
That we completely talked past each other the entire time.
I do, and maybe if you and I talk again at some point in the future, we'll have to talk about the whole blue collar thing and like the perceptions of American workers and that sort of thing. But like that's fine.
The thing that bothers me the most, so these are the two things that bother me the most when I talk to people. Well, it's kind of one thing, right? What I look for when I talk to people is consistency and hypocrisy, which are kind of the same thing, right? I want to make sure that your belief system is consistent, that whatever you grant for yourself, you're applying to other people, right? And I try to carry that through to everything, right? So if you're very critical of somebody, are you critical to the other side for the same thing? Because if not, you're a partisan hack, or you're just engaged in propaganda or fulfilling a certain narrative with no critical thought.
Well, then I gotta ask though, and this is an honest question.
Yeah.
Do you yourself always hold true to those ideals? And I mean always.
Yeah, always. I really do try to, and there have been things.
Try is one thing.
Well, yeah, but what I'm saying is, like, if somebody points out to me that if I'm factually incorrect in something, and I really do like this about my community. If you go read my subreddit, like, there are people that will call me out for saying stupid shit or shit that's just incorrect. I think in the last conversation that I had with somebody,
too.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Like, in the last conversation I had with somebody, I said something around the fact that I think, like, an average trained woman is probably stronger than, like, an untrained man, right? Which I don't think is true now. I said that, and I did think that was true, but now I had, like, so many people link me shit saying, like, Destiny, that's not right, blah, 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 right? It's like, okay, yeah. So, you know, and if people change that, like, I'll change my stance on something if somebody shows me that I'm wrong, and I'll do it in an instant. If you show me the data, I'll change immediately, because I'm not like emotionally attached to a particular narrative. You know, if somebody came out immediately and showed me, like, here's conclusive evidence that black people and Hispanics are, you know, like, intellectually inferior, it's okay, well, fuck, then I need to rethink how I guess we approach these issues. You know, if it's actually true, then sure, like, that's usually how I go. But when people are inconsistent and aren't functioning in good faith, like they're not trying to be consistent, that really bothers me. So one of the things that really bothered me about Sargon, the reason why we moved on to our second debate is, you know everything that happened with PewDiePie, right?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Okay, so I would hope that after 2 hours of talking to me, I come across as at least a reasonable person and a somewhat intelligent person. When I say intelligent, usually I try to read at least a little bit about the things I talk about, right? If I'm bringing up a point, I try to be at least somewhat informed or have cursory information of it, right?
Sure.
I'm not saying like crazy, stupid, off the wall shit, right?
But open to new ideas, new information.
Sure, yeah, sure. If somebody shows me something, then sure. So like something that really bothered me was in my debate with JonTron, my discussion with JonTron, we had a lot of discussions over a lot of things. Sargon clipped 4 20 to 30 second excerpts of me saying things and like put that on a YouTube channel to poke fun at what I was saying, and they were like totally out there things. So like one example was I was talking to JonTron about immigration. JonTron was saying like immigration is destroying countries all over the world. And I mentioned something. I was like, okay, California deals with more immigration than almost any other country in the world. And California has a very, very strong economy. Why aren't they collapsing, right? And Sargon clipped that and titled it like, Destiny thinks Mexican immigrants run Silicon Valley, right? That's not a very fair characterization of what I'm saying.
I'm gonna have to go. I'm gonna have to go look at those.
Sure, you're not gonna be able to find them now, but because of a whole bunch of shit. But like he did this with 4 different clips, and like when I look at stuff like that, that makes me very angry because one, I've talked to Sargon before. Okay, he knows I'm not a total idiot, or at least he should. I know I'm not an idiot, and nobody that listened to that discussion came away thinking, "Wow, Destiny thinks that like Facebook's COO is Pedro Gonzalez." Like, and every single person that runs all these tech companies are Mexican immigrants. Like, I don't think that. He had another clip where JonTron had said something. I said something to JonTron. I was like, does it bother you that you share so many talking points with race realists and Nazis, blah, blah, blah? And he's like, okay, well, what about all the communists in your group? And I was like really taken aback by that. And I said something along those lines like, well, I don't even know, like, what is wrong with communism or what's your issue? Because I was curious, like, what are you even pointing to? Like, was he talking about government shit? Was he talking about people like, but we never even talked about that further. Like,
what group was he talking about?
I don't know. He just said the communists in your group. And I was like, and so I thought that was weird. And I think I said like, what's wrong with communism? Or like, what was his point? But we never really talked about it. It was like 20 seconds. And then he clipped that as
don't, whatever you do, don't ever say the words, what's wrong with communism? Because somebody's going to give you a fucking earful.
Yeah, sure. Depending on who you talk to. But I wanted to know what JonTron thought. I was curious what he was, because I was talking to JonTron, right? Okay. Like I can, I'm not an idiot. I know the history of the world, right? Or to some extent, like I know about Stalin and Mao. Like I know that bad shit has happened under communism, of course. But I was curious why JonTron brought it up. But like, but then Sargon clipped that to make it sound like I was a defender of communism. And he also clipped something else where JonTron was saying there's race riots all over Europe right now, rioting all over Europe. It's like, there's not rioting all over Europe. Like, do riots happen? Sure, but Europe is not devolving into riots. And then Sargon clipped that and said like, Destiny thinks nothing is happening in Europe or whatever. And like, after like, so seeing somebody that, one, is recently been involved with arguing with somebody about people clipping him out of context, and then two, got so mad about the Wall Street Journal's hit piece on PewDiePie doing that, for him to take those clips out of context and then throw them onto his channel, and now I see them used constantly as talking points against me, that's really fucking irritating. Because of all the JonTron shit, nobody actually made any videos talking about any of the things we discussed. It was usually calling me a communist, saying that I am a defender of communism, saying that I think Mexicans run Silicon Valley, or any of the other propaganda clips that
there's a lot. There was a lot of videos that were made basically condemning JonTron as like the worst person on the fucking planet.
Sure, there were a few. Sure.
There was no. I mean, it wasn't just a few. I mean, there was quite a few. It's just there's a notion of like exposure versus spread. Sargon might like put you on blast with some of these ideals, and like whether I agree with them or not, I like again I'd have to look at them in the broader context,
Sure.
But as far as like the number of channels that I did see condemning JonTron as like this horrible Nazi person, there was a lot. There was a huge amount of people who were doing that. None of them were really big channels necessarily, but there was a lot of people who were like flicking him some shit.
Mm-hmm. Or have you seen Naked Ape's hit piece on me?
No.
A guy named Naked Ape put together a 15-minute video with a bunch of personal text, and Sargon retweeted it.
Here's the thing. Uh-huh. And this is a good example of like the I'm gonna say the goddamn words. The skeptic community. Like so here's a good example. Like I do have a lot of respect for Naked Ape. We are contemporaries. God. We've hung out. We've talked before in the past. I don't necessarily like all of Naked Ape's videos, and I don't think Naked Ape likes all of my videos too. But Naked Ape has a format that I don't necessarily enjoy that type of format that he employs. And
by format, you mean character assassination, right? Like,
well, I mean, sometimes I do enjoy it though. Sometimes I do enjoy it. Like, here, a good example is like Naked Ape took the piss out of Amazing Atheist, and I feel like at that particular point in time, I do love TJ. I love TJ. I love the Amazing Atheist, but he was being such a wanker at the time when Naked Ape took the piss out of him. I'm like, all right, yeah, you got a good point, Naked Ape. That's a good point. And then sometimes Naked Ape like takes the piss out of somebody. I'm like, you know, I don't think I'm on board with this one.
Sure, like,
and
I could understand if he made a video, like, trashing everything I said to JonTron, but his video was literally filled with, like, drama that I'd been involved with 4+ years ago, and then some things taken horrendously out of context, and then some just, like, really random, huge personal attacks. Like, I've talked a lot with my stream. I've been streaming for 7 years. Like, my friend committed suicide a long time ago, probably my closest friend at the time, one of 2 close friends that I had, and this is a very personal topic to me. I've talked about it, in the past on stream before, and I've made posts about it. It is literally, and I've said multiple times, this is literally probably the only regret that I have in my life is that this guy killed himself, and I didn't do more to stop it, right? And he, like, includes this in his video and says that I, like, encouraged him to do it. Destiny tells his friends to kill himself. And that was just one of many, like, really extremely out there things. On another stream, like, we had a conversation once about incest, which is a really interesting conversation. If you've never asked somebody, like, what, like, here's a question. What's wrong?
I saw that video, actually. Yeah.
Sure, if you've seen the whole video, like, what is wrong with consenting sex between 2 19-year-old brother and sister people that don't have a child? Like, that's a really interesting question, and there's a lot of talk about...
As long as they ain't breeding, I mean,
Sure, but you say that, a lot of people have visceral reactions to incest, like, so it's an interesting conversation. Where do you stand on sexuality? What's right, what's wrong, why is it right or wrong, right? And then, like, he takes this to mean that I guess, like, I'm gonna fuck my kid or 15-year-olds, and, like, it, like, oh, God, like, when I see people engage in that level of hit piecery, like, these are things that I never do. Or maybe, like, if I'm in a personal fight with somebody, but, like, I've never made a video of Sargon, like, when Sargon was 22 years old, like, he cheated on his girlfriend and fucked his son in the mouth, I think, like, like, I never, like, make pieces like this, and I don't encourage people to do it. And it bothers me because this is a community of people who are supposedly anti-SJW, and this is the SJW calling card. This is how you know you're an SJW, is when you find personal pieces of information and you try to assassinate somebody's character.
Honestly, I think that's worse than SJW stuff, though.
Well, like, I say that because, like, SJWs are in the act of, like, okay, I know this dude. At 14 years ago, he used the word faggot on one of his forum posts. He hates gay people. Like, get him fired.
Well, sure. That's SJW. That's SJW. But, like, to if you were to manufacture or something, that's, like, even above and beyond. Like, that would be fucking crazy. Like, to put a false attribution towards somebody that's uncharitable, it doesn't make any fucking sense. That's not fair whatsoever. And I honestly feel like if you see that type of uncharitable behavior being put forth, and you actually put forth an argument that this is not intellectually honest, and you put it towards somebody like Sargon would actually pay attention.
Then why did he retweet the video?
I don't know.
That day that he retweeted the video, we started off fighting that day because he said that I DMCA'd 2 videos that were already offline, and that didn't happen. But he stuck with that narrative the whole day.
If it bothers you that much, I can ask him later tonight.
No, that bridge has been burned. Like, we hate each other now. That's never.
You think so?
Oh yeah. But like he started that whole day off saying that, like, oh, Neo Destiny or Omni Destiny or whatever is he's DMCAing videos that have already taken offline, just to try to get my channel shut down. I was like, what? This hasn't happened at all. Post proof. Like, none of this has happened. And he kept saying it, and he followed that the entire day. And then when I finally asked him, what?
Well, did you ever file any DMCAs against Sargon? Like, I'm curious about that.
I did. So those 4 clips that he posted were ripped exactly from my YouTube videos, and I ended up taking all 4 of them down that night because I was really fucking pissed about it.
Do you okay? I can't remember on these clips. Did Sargon add any commentary on these clips?
No. I'm very well versed in how this works. Sargon put out a video that next day describing his problems with me, and he had a ton of my clips and everything. Naked Ape's hit piece includes a ton of my stream views and everything, right? But I would consider these fair use. This is transformative content. They're adding commentary over it. Sargon was just straight 30-second clips from my YouTube video posted on his channel. That was it. It was 4 straight 30-second clips with no modification, no editing.
He added nothing to it?
All he did was change the title. That's it.
How in the fuck did he make that much of a fucking mistake? What the fuck?
Well, see, because that's what I wonder. But see, he did it on his other channel called the New Meme Media. This is okay. For anybody out there who's watching this is a little primer. I'm gonna give you a little primer. All right,
You got a YouTube channel you don't like. They say something that pisses you off. This is what you do. You go to you go to the YouTube channel and you go www dot and you change that to pwnyoutube.com and you hit that, download that fucking video. Then all you gotta do, find the section that you don't like, make it 20 seconds long, and then play that 20 seconds, and at the end of the 20 seconds be like, I think this person is a fucking idiot, and upload it, and you cannot get in fucking trouble. That's all it is. All you need is to put something that is a concise, simple clip with you putting a criticism on it, and you're fine. But if you take a 20 to 30 to 40 second clip of somebody's shit and you upload it without you being like, yo, this is dope whack, this is fucking ridiculous. Like, no, you're gonna get in fucking trouble. You're gonna get in fucking trouble.
The problem was, like, so I ended up DMCAing all 4 of those clips. Sargon said I was trying to suppress the truth, and then he uploaded all 4 of them to his Twitter account. So then I DMCA'd all 4 of those on the Twitter account. And then we finally had our conversation. So the strange thing was, on the 15th or 16th, he posted a notice that he'd gotten from YouTube saying, hey, you've got these claims in your account. If you don't file a counterclaim, this account is going to be shut down by the 23rd, right? So then we had our conversation. Right. So listen, dude, I'm super reasonable, okay? I never ever want to hurt somebody's career. That's not the kind of shit that I engage in. I said it with JonTron, I said it with every single person I've ever argued with ever. I never want to damage somebody's career. So I thought that when me and Sargon were going to talk, I brought up the DMCA stuff. I was like, do you want to go over the DMCA stuff? And he kind of laughed it off and we just moved on. And he said, it's not a big deal. I don't care about it. So I was like, okay, that's kind of weird. And then we just never talked about it. Well, lo and behold, the 23rd rolls around. He himself posted a picture on his Twitter account saying his account was going to get shut down. When his account gets shut down on that channel, he starts tweeting that I had filed like ghost DMCA claims like the day after on videos that he'd already removed just to get his channel shut down. And then when I started asking, I was like, why aren't you posting proof of this? Why didn't you file a counter DMCA claim? He was like, you know why I didn't do it. It's because you're a man of low character. And then he started tweeting the Naked Ape hit piece about me.
All right, well, okay. So devil's advocate. Devil's advocate.
No, okay.
Devil's advocate. Did you ask him to remove those videos if they were not fair use before you DMCA?
No, I didn't.
Well, maybe that could be something people could hold against you.
Well, but I mean,
it's not very charitable. It's
not very charitable. And I hate to be a dick, but technically, I don't need to ask somebody permission to remove, because it's my shit. Technically, he should have asked me for permission first, right? Like,
that's true.
If the RCAA shows up at my house and busts me, or the MPAA or whatever, for torrenting too much, and I'm like, hold on, you didn't ask me to stop seeding these torrents. Can you really fine me for this right now? This is kind of a dick move. Like, I don't know if that's like a reasonable. And again, if you would have filed the counterclaims and after we talked, I probably would have just rescinded it all, because I would have looked like a huge fucking dick there. If he would have said, okay,
well, I mean, you did anyway.
Well, I don't think so. He took 4 clips of me out of context that were straight rips and threw them onto a channel that wasn't his main one, because he probably knew he was in the wrong. But he didn't talk with me at all about it. He didn't ask me to rescind them. He didn't ask me to do anything. He didn't file a counterclaim. So I was like, well, okay, fuck. And then when it got removed, he acted all surprised. Like, what the fuck?
There are times like, you know, I'm way smaller than Carl. Like, I've only got 45,000 subscribers, but there are definitely times where, like, you know, I'm gonna get into an argument with somebody. I'm gonna be getting into the bands with them, and I'll use my second channel to, like, you know, take the shit out of them a little bit. But that's because I don't want it to be a huge shit show on them. Mm-hmm. I'm not like trying to lead the hordes to go and poop all over their chest or something like that.
Sure.
Maybe that's what it was.
Sure, it's just the thing, again, like, my biggest guiding thing on what makes me mad on the internet is hypocrisy. And when you have a community that define themselves as anti-SJWs who are all engaging in massive hit pieces against me, like, even following my own Twitter, I don't know if you've been watching your responses, there are people tweeting that, like, I want to just fuck 15-year-olds all the time, or why are they always pedophiles? I don't know if you've seen that, like, popping up in your mentions.
I haven't been paying attention, no.
Oh, yeah,
no.
like, this dude, like, it's funny. Destiny. Oh, never mind. I've been informed that Destiny is a filthy pedophile that tries to bang 15-year-olds. And I see all of this rhetoric now is super really common around the internet now because Sargon is amplifying the Naked Ape hit piece and so many other people are doing it. It's like, you guys are engaging in all the character assassination that you claim to hate. Like, so what is it? Is every single side just as toxic as every single other side? Like, that's really disappointing to me, you know?
We know that, though. You and I have been on the internet long enough. You already know the answer to that.
Oh, sure, but at least don't market yourself as being different then. Like, fuck. Like, god damn.
That's why I don't. Why I don't. That's the big delineation between like internet culture, cults of personality versus people who believe that they're going to be getting into something political. Mm-hmm. People who want to get into something political, they feel like they can promote an idea that's larger than themselves, and everybody's going to want to buy into this idea. The problem is, they're just people. They're just people. They're just as flawed as any of us. The reason why politicians work and we don't, why internet politicians don't work, but real politicians do, these are people who have been groomed since fucking birth. They have massive, massive fucking infrastructure of people dressing them the right way, telling them exactly to say the right things the right fucking way, to appeal to the widest audience the right fucking way. Internet doesn't stand a chance. But you do have these ideologues, these people who feel like they can actually make an effort and a change in the world without this infrastructure. And it's just, it's amateurs trying to play chess, man.
Sure.
It's always.
I just wish that the people in charge would be a little bit more responsible, I guess. But
I still don't think you should have put the DMCAs out there, though.
I mean, oof.
I don't agree. Maybe that's our spicy moment tonight, Destiny. I don't agree. I don't agree on your DMCAs, Destiny. Not cool.
Wait, who was that?
I don't know.
Oh God, fuck! Who did he just sound like there, guys? Oh fuck! That could have been an impersonation of somebody. Oh God, who am I thinking of, guys? Oh fuck!
I do great impersonations.
Yeah, everybody kept asking me to get you to do more Paul Joseph Watson.
Oh fuck! Are you serious?
Oh, was it a donkey? Oh yeah. That was a donkey. That was a.
It was
oh no, it was a PewDiePie. It was a PewDiePie. You sound like a PewDiePie there. You sound like a PewDiePie there. That's what it wasn't donkey. It was a PewDiePie.
I'm just trying to say, guys.
Yeah.
No big fucking deal.
Okay,
Omni Destiny. He's okay. He's all right.
Now
look out behind you, Steve. It's a level 56 Jew. Here he comes.
Give us a good Nazi salute to send us off. Oh shit. Give us a Paul Joseph Watson before we're done. About them liberals.
Hang on. Let me think about it. The Omni Destiny channel is a channel that's riddled with nothing but a bunch of filthy leftists. These people are trying to erode the basic fabric of American culture. These leftist motherfuckers, they're absolutely trying to be part of the Illuminati. You must resist because conservatism is the new counterculture.
Okay, that was pretty close. The end was really good. You got it. Okay. Did you see the video that he made on culture and the one dude that tore him apart on it about how all music and all culture is trash today?
One of these days, I'm going to corner Paul Joseph Watson in a dark alley. I'm going to butt fuck him.
All music. Okay. Hey, here's your tweet for the day that I leave you with. Apparently, the U.S. has carried out missile strikes against Syrian military airfield in the first direct action against the Assad regime. Oof. Do you think that Bannon was removed from the National Security Council because Hillary Clinton was actually put there and she's the one driving this war now, like Trump said she would?
Don't even fuck with my brain anymore. But I tell you what. I'll put an open invitation out there. You and me, duos, player unknown battlegrounds. Tomorrow.
All right, we'll do it. Are you really good or?
I'm okay. I'll put myself at 68%.
Do you play CS:GO?
Yeah, I played CS:GO a long time ago.
What was your rank in CS:GO?
I played Counter-Strike until they started ranking, and then I was like, fuck this shit, and then I jumped out.
Okay. Because when people say I'm okay, sometimes that means they're really like mediocre, and then other times they're like, oh, I'm okay. You know, I was Master Guardian, but you know, I wasn't really that good at Master Guardian. It's like, okay, dude, fuck you.
I played Counter-Strike back when it started on was it? As a Half-Life 1 mod. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Long time ago. I started doing man, I've been playing video games since like Wolfenstein 3D. Like I'm fine. I'm fine.
Gotcha.
Yeah. We'll play our underground.
Okay, we'll do it. My final thought. The one big thing I want to see today. Somebody linked me a comment earlier on the Donald. Do you ever read the Donald?
I do.
They were talking about. Oh, this is it. It's still up. 7D chess. Trump condemns Assad, which goes against the interests of Russia. Putin spokesman declares support for Assad is not unconditional, demands a full investigation. Trump can now work alongside Russia, exposing the source of attacks. Everybody was saying that Trump was playing 7D chess. I wonder how they're going to explain it away now that we're fucking bombing Syria. All right. I love you, dude. It's been fun talking. I appreciate the conversation.
You know my comment is on that?
What?
I have no comment.
All right. Well, good luck, dude.
Best of luck to you, man. Good night.
Good night.